What's up guys, this is your favorite fanfic YouTuber, the Fanfic Majesty, and welcome to another amazing video. You can follow me on Patreon for exclusive stories.
7 MHA. Chapter 151 It's so delicious. After eating Brother Midoriya's lunch, Chi Feng admired it. Midoriya's mother's craftsmanship is really good, no wonder she will get fat.
However, this bento is obviously not enough for Chi Feng. Now his stomach is like a bottomless pit. After eating this bento of Brother Midoriya, it only fills up 1/5 of his stomach. It's still very early.
So, now we're on the topic. Chi Feng smiled, found the charcoal and put it into the groove of the grill, then took out the meat and vegetables and started making skewers. The three people have relatively strong hands-on skills. The meat was skewered and placed on the iron plate.
The wind on the beach was relatively strong, but the rock just blocked the air outlet, so the sand could not blow on the food. After half an hour of operation, 1/3 of the meat and vegetables were skewered. Chi Feng took out the spices and placed them on the grill, ready to start grilling. Chi Feng didn't want to use his quirk to burn charcoal. He looked into the distance and found Shoto Todoroki lying on the beach blowing hair. His long white and red hair drifted with the sea breeze, like a prodigal son. Mr. Boom! Chi Feng shouted. Shoto Todoroki turned his head to look at Chi Feng's side and found that he was blocked by a rock. But Chi Feng showed his head outside, which looked a little funny. Shoto Todoroki stood up, and when he came to Chi Feng, he glanced at the barbecue grill and Midoriya Izuku Uraraka Ochako. He suddenly smiled and said, "Are you asking me to help you make a fire?" Haha, you are still smart. Chi Feng laughed. Shoto Todoroki glanced at the food that was skewered on the ground, and then asked, "Can't you dissolve it at high temperature, and it should be able to make a fire? How can you think of me? Isn't this for you to do your part and eat together?" Chi Feng took the grill off, revealing the charcoal inside. Shoto Todoroki was waiting for this sentence. With a wave of his right hand, the flames swept the charcoal instantly, igniting them. Chi Feng quickly put the grill net up and looked at Midoriya Izuku. "Brother Midoriya, bring the lamb skewers and beef skewers, as well as green pepper skewers and cabbage." Midoriya Izuku immediately did so. After bringing the food, Chi Feng quickly placed it on the grill. The temperature on the charcoal was just right. When the mutton and beef skewers were placed on the grill, the aroma began to float out. Chi Feng smiled, turning the skewers. The oil dripped down the meat onto the charcoal, making a sneer, and the fragrance became stronger. Shoto Todoroki leaned against the rock and smelled the fragrance. This is the purest fragrance without any condiments.
When Chi Feng sprinkled pepper, chili powder, and some seasonings on it, the scent became richer and drifted away. Chi Feng immediately took out a brush, dipped a little oil and brushed it on the barbecue, letting it go. The fragrance floats further. Did you smell anything? Hagakure Toru was playing with an inflatable ball in the water, and when he smelled the scent, he asked the ears on the side. Read more at hotmtlnovel.zi.
Smell it, it's very fragrant. Erlang's nose moved, a little involuntary.
Could it be someone grilling? Ashido Mina said with some yearning. She hadn't smelled this scent for a long time. There used to be an old man who opened a barbecue stall downstairs in her house, just a year ago. But after moving away, I never smelled this scent again.
Barbecue? The two of them were taken aback, then looked at the rock not far away, and a white smoke floated to the sky. Obviously, this is a barbecue. Wow, go see who is grilling. Ashido Mina drooled. At this moment, in a relatively hidden forest on the inner side of the beach, Shabby and Himiko Toga are hiding here, and the fragrance begins to drift around in the wind, drifting towards this side. Hey, Shabby. Do you smell the scent? Himiko Toga's nose moved, and he kept smelling the unremarkable scent. Well, it's like the scent of being roasted by me, Shabby said lightly, without too much surprise. You are really boring, and you are a little disgusting. Himiko Toga glanced at the T-bar. This is obviously the smell of barbecue. How can it be compared with the person who has cooked? Ida Tenya's face was a little ugly. He just got out of the car and ran to an empty place and started to squat. I don't know why, his stomach hurts when he got out of the car, and he couldn't stop it. Now that he hasn't eaten, he smells the smell of Chi Feng's barbecue, his stomach gurgling, but his stomach hasn't been relieved yet. It seems that there is still some time. Chi Feng pressed the lamb with an iron plate, and the oil juice in it was squeezed onto the charcoal. The fragrance in the sneer became stronger. Finally, Chi Feng sprinkled a few powders and the first round of barbecue was completed and it was ready to eat. Looking at the evenly colored and shiny lamb skewers in his hands, Uraraka Ochako took a deep breath. Don't get fat, don't get fat. Then I took a bite, and the thick juice and meat instantly filled every taste cell of Uraraka Ochako, and she felt like she was in a food paradise, so delicious. Chi Feng looked at the three of them with satisfaction. It was the most exaggerated Midoriya brother, and all his tears were eaten. How delicious is this to make it taste like this? Ashido Mina looked at Chi Feng with tears in her eyes. Student Chi Feng, your skewers are so delicious. Ah, is it really grilling skewers, or is it made by Chi Feng? Hagakure Toru exclaimed in surprise. These girls have little stars in their eyes. If a man wants to grab a woman's heart, then you have to work hard in cooking. This makes Ashido Mina a few people so happy. Such a fragrant skewers must taste very good. When the second round of meat was tested, Shoto Todoroki didn't gobble it up like that. but watched Ashido Mina eat first, and then he picked up a few skewers and started eating. This is as good as the barbecue stall downstairs in his house a year ago. They are both terribly delicious. P.S. If you want to see the original version, please join the group, 450,478,600 if you want to discuss the plot. Then the roll is all right, I will arrange it according to my own circumstances. Midoriya Izuku's tears are about to shed at this moment. He has never eaten such a delicious skewers since he was a child. It is still lamb. The taste is indescribable. In short, it is delicious. But it's gone. Ashido Mina said regretfully. After eating, Midoriya Izuku licked his lips and wiped away the tears, then took all the meat skewers from the iron plate on the floor. Chi Feng took it and started the second round of barbecue. Shoto Todoroki can't take care of the high cold at the moment. He eats one after another. To be honest, he can't see that Chi Feng has such a talent. He can actually make such delicious skewers. He usually does things outside. I'm not used to eating, so I eat the food my sister cooks at home. The last few skewers of Chi Feng are not welcome. They eat them all by themselves. The grill itself is not big. You can grill more than 20 skewers at a time. Just Shoto Todoroki just ate more than a dozen skewers. Midoriya and Uraraka. Ochako ate 5 skewers by himself, and Chi Feng resolved the remaining skewers.
Chi Feng chuckled, there are more. By the time the 3 of Hagakure Toru arrived, there was no more string.
Now Chi Feng's hand barbecue tells him that it's not just his sister's cooking that is delicious, I also Chi Feng's cooking. Chapter 152 The needle is broken. What should I do if I want to eat skewers? Himiko Toga hid in the woods and said uncomfortably. With so many people around Chi Feng, it is very difficult to get started. However, Chi Feng also barbecues, which evokes her all evil appetite.
Don't move rashly. Chappie seems to have no sense of taste. The aroma from Chi Feng's barbecue can't affect him at all. Only strength is what he pursues.
But I really want to eat it, Himiko Toga said angrily, his eyes full of grievances. Chi Feng didn't know that there were 2 guys spying on him in the grass. At this time, Yayorozu Momo and a group of female classmates were all attracted. Although many people had already eaten, the meat skewers that Chi Feng grilled were really too good. It's fragrant, I can't help but want to eat. Chi Feng also meets everyone's requirements. Although the grill is a bit small, it is still possible to meet 4 or 5 at a time. Lying on the folding chair, Aizawa Shota opened his eyes. The smell lingered on his nose for a long time, and it couldn't dissipate for a long time. Looking into the distance, a group of students gathered around a rock, and white smoke floated into the sky in the surrounding direction, and the noise of twittering came one after another. My stomach is a little hungry. Aizawa Shota touched his stomach and screamed out of his stomach, reminding him that it was time to eat. When Aizawa Shota got up and passed Bakugo Katsuki, he found a white mark hanging on the corner of Bakugo Katsuki's mouth. Aizawa Shota said faintly. If you want to eat, just go. You might as well go home alone. I didn't want to participate. Bakugo Katsuki didn't expect Aizawa Shota to come over, and the saliva on the corners of his mouth had not been wiped off. Now it is very embarrassing to be exposed. Don't be brave. Aizawa Shota walked slowly towards Chi Feng. I can't lie in my stomach. Cut. As soon as Bakugo Katsuki said to cut, his stomach began to gurgle. Be quiet for lousy. Bakugo Katsuki cursed, pointing to her belly, but her belly screamed louder. Aizawa Shota separated the crowd, looked at the empty grill and asked, any more? Yes, of course. Chi Feng saw that the aroma of his roasting even attracted Aizawa Shota, and he was delighted, and began to skewer meat for the North barbecue. Everyone is waiting here. Everyone chatted with each other. At this moment, there was a rustling voice from afar, and everyone looked back. Ida Tenya was rushing towards this side with tears in his eyes. Well, what's wrong with Ida-san? Kirishima Eijiro looked at Ida Tenya who was rushing towards this side in surprise. I haven't seen the squad leader just now. I don't know where I came from at this time. Shiro Honda touched his head and said. Get out of the way. Ida Tenya rushed towards him, only to find the source of the fragrance that made him dream of, but there was not a single thing on the iron frame that was roasting. Read more at hotmtlnovel.zi. It's gone, isn't it there? Ida Tenya looked at Chi Feng breathlessly, eyes full of longing. Mr. Ida, what did you do just now? Chi Feng asked suspiciously. He always felt that something was missing, only to realize that the official complaint of Ida Tenya was missing. Ida Tenya was a little embarrassed, waved his hand and said, I just went to the toilet. I haven't eaten yet, so, is there any more to eat? Yes, brother Midoriya, bring it up. Chi Feng looked at Midoriya Izuku, and Midoriya Izuku obediently handed the meat on the iron plate to Chi Feng. Chi Feng placed the meat on the grill and looked at the students. Said, everyone has eaten what I baked. Teacher Aizawa and the monitor have not eaten it yet, so I will give it to them this time. Do you have any comments? Although some students still want to eat, they can only nod their heads to agree. Yayorozu Momo looked a little dazed in the crowd. Chi Feng would grill for the first time she knew it, and it tasted so delicious. This is how many times more delicious than the skewers she had eaten outside. It is certain that if Chi Feng sells skewers outside, which is definitely a huge income. What a mysterious man. Yayorozu Momo can't see through Chi Feng more and more. Are there many things she doesn't know? Okay. Mr. Aizawa, Mr. Ida, your skewers are ready. Chi Feng hasn't finished saying a word. Ida Tenya has already taken half of the skewers, and Aizawa Shota has also taken the other half. The two gorged themselves, and all of a sudden more than 20 skewers of barbecue were eaten up. It's so delicious, it's not enough, Ida Tenya said loudly. Yes, we don't have enough food, the other students said. Chi Feng feels that he has done something wrong. These classmates seem to have fallen in love with his barbecue. Do you want to consider opening a barbecue restaurant? Hey, this is a good idea. Chi Feng feels that opening a barbecue restaurant by himself is definitely a good business, but even if he doesn't have so much time in the shop, he can only treat it as an interest. After all, he is not short of money. At 3 o'clock in the afternoon, it was the time when the sun was the strongest. All the meat and vegetables that Chi Feng brought had disappeared and were digested in the stomachs of the students. The students were satisfied lying on the beach and basking in the sun warmth. Chi Feng washed the grill and put it back in his bag, ready to go to the toilet in the distance. Damn it, the flesh is gone, Himiko Toga said unwillingly, pulling the corner of his clothes. He walked away and followed. Shabby stood up, pulled the leaves away and walked out. Himiko Toga had no choice but to keep up, but if he could get Chi Feng's blood, it would be a very good thing to make up for the lack of meat. Chi Feng found a place with no one and just started to take off his pants. A blue flame hit him in front of him. Chi Feng subconsciously turned on Thor again, and then he seemed to be pierced by something on his butt, but it didn't hurt at all. Ah, the needle is broken. Himiko Toga's face changed. Originally, Chi Feng retreated unsuspectingly and was pricked by her. He could definitely get a little blood, but the needles were all broken. Is this skin so hard? Himiko Toga. Chi Feng found out that Himiko Toga was behind him, and the person who walked out after the blue flame in front of him dissipated. He also knew Choppy. The leading member of the Villain Alliance, Choppy is considered high-end combat power in it, perhaps not as powerful as Stain, but it is definitely not much worse. Why are they here, Needle? Want my blood? Chi Feng has come to understand that the Villain Alliance seems a little unbearable, but Choppy and Himiko Toga want his blood, so Chi Feng is too underestimated. Finally, when I saw you, you should have been a good girl. How long have you joined the Villain Alliance? Chi Feng looked at Himiko Toga and asked. Villain Alliance? Himiko Toga said suspiciously, and then said with his eyes wide open. No, Choppy and I did not join the Villain Alliance, but we thought about it. Chi Feng was taken aback and didn't join the Villain Alliance. How did you two meet? Choppy saw the doubt in Chi Feng's eyes, but didn't say anything. It was the feeling that Chi Feng gave him, as if he had known them a long time ago, and even understood their recent thoughts. Chapter 153 The Flame of Choppy. The Villain Alliance did throw an olive branch out, and even the people of the Underground Heroes also convened. The reason why he has not joined the Villain Alliance now is that he lacks a reason and condition. If Chi Feng knew their thoughts, of course they would understand that the reason was Stain, but now the Stain incident has not completely erupted, but it will soon. Let's go, my blood is not so easy to take, Chi Feng said, shaking his pants. He was still holding urine.
Go, Chappie sneered. Just relying on you as a student, do you still want to escape from our hands? Your teacher is taking a nap now, but he can't save you. Who said I have to rely on others? Chi Feng looked at Chappie and said, don't you know my performance at the sports festival? So what? Chappie said calmly. Sports festivals are nothing but the stage for your students. Your quirk is used to save people, but my quirk is used to kill people. Chi Feng turned to look at Himiko Toga. You stay away, I'm afraid of hurting you.
Himiko Toga walked away madly. She knew that she was not Chi Feng's opponent, so she was kissed by this guy at the beginning. But she saw Chi Feng throbbing unknowingly. She wanted to draw a tube of blood from Chi Feng, but the needles were broken. It seems that the hardness of the needles will be strengthened next time. Are you going to do it with me? Choppy was surprised. How could a student have the courage to face him? Is this still a student? Otherwise, is it time for me to move the rescuers now? Chi Feng smiled, his body covered with a layer of blue armor, and a blue thunder sword in his hand formed.
Chappie's face changed. The person who can manifest the quirk to such an extent is definitely not as simple as a student. The flames he controls now can't be said to be weapons, at most it only has shapes.
You have a secret, Choppy was surprised, but still calmly said. Presumably no one in Ua High School knows your true strength, so you can live to this day not because of good luck, but because you have this strength. Unexpectedly, the strength of a freshman in the first year of high school can be compared with that of the third year of high school. Although Choppy's tone is flat, the blue flames around her body have become particularly solid, and the surrounding temperature has also risen rapidly. The flowers and plants were all burned to ashes. Chi Feng knows how strong the third-year students of Ua High School are. They pass Million, Tamaki Amajiki, and Najire-chan. These three third-year students are called UAs. Big Three. Maybe their current strengths each have the top 3 of the 7 saints. Got it. The reason why UA High School has attracted much attention is that it can cultivate people who transcend the dark power. The UA Big Three will surely become stronger after they leave the school, but that will also be the future. I took this opportunity to see if the strength of Choppy is worthy of the name. Read more at hotmtlnovel.zi. Before Chabby started, the thunder sword in Chi Feng's hand was slashed out. The dry and hot electric light from the thunder and lightning quickly came to Choppy's body. With a single wave of Choppy, a blue flame swept out. Abruptly, Chi Feng's thunder sword attack was resolved. The blue flame did not stop and swept towards Chi Feng. Chi Feng could not use air to control him, but this weird flame could not stop him. A white light drew across him like a sword with one hand, and a large wind blade directly directed the blue flame. Cut open. With a wave of Chi Feng's right hand, Cha Pai immediately felt the danger coming, but couldn't tell the direction. At this moment, there was thunder in his ear. If he hadn't taken precautions, his eardrum would have been ruptured. A blue flame was left in place, and Chabby took Himiko Toga away because he saw the teacher from UA High School coming towards this side. If the teacher does not come, he may use all his strength to take Chi Feng down, but obviously this is not his place. Too much action will definitely attract the teacher. Chi Feng watched Chabby leave. After 10 seconds, Aizawa Shota came to Chi Feng's side, looked at the blue flame on the ground not far away, and asked, "Who was it just now?" "It's all about the dark forces." Chi Feng's tone was flat, and he didn't say who it was. Aizawa Shota knew what Chi Feng meant. Since the sports festival incident, some people have begun to rumors that All Might's body is dysfunctional. At this time, the dark forces began to move around, and various forces surfaced. Fortunately, Chi Feng is here. If you change to other students, Aizawa Shota will definitely not stand here with such a good face. As a teacher, protecting the safety of students is the primary responsibility. It is also impossible to explain to the parents of the students. Go back. Since Chi Feng didn't want to say much, Aizawa Shota didn't ask too much, and turned around and returned. Chi Feng always feels that the quirk of the Choppy is very strange. The flame is not burning at a high temperature, but it is like another feeling. This feeling is hard to say. In short, it is very strange and different from ordinary flames. How lonely is invincibility? Chi Feng answered the phone. The song was the Japanese version of How Lonely is Invincible. It was a bit cool. A group of students turned their heads to look at Chi Feng. "Brother Dark Knight, haven't you forgotten me?" A man's voice came through the phone. Chi Feng knew who it was when he heard this voice. "Brother Kurosawa, of course I remember." "Haha, that's good." Kurosawa let out a sigh of relief. If Chi Feng regrets it, he can't find someone to form a team. "I call you to remind you that the qualifying contest will start the day after tomorrow. You need come to Tokyo one day in advance and Demeng will arrange accommodation for you."
Understood. Chi Feng and Kurosawa chatted for a few words and then hung up the phone. The qualifying contest was about to start. Suddenly, Chi Feng felt a little restless in his heart. All the 5 kings and 7 sages from all over the country are going to participate. The world is finally here.
Originally, Chi Feng planned to find Banshin Yinsang's mess house. Now think about it and wait until the qualifying competition is over. Approaching the evening, Aizawa Shota drove everyone back to the school bus and then returned to school. After arriving at the school is over, and there is still a week to return to the school. Chi Feng's time has been arranged full and I feel very fulfilling. "Chi Feng, have you considered opening a barbecue restaurant?" Ashido Mina ran over to the school gate after school and asked. "I have considered it, but, if you are short of funds, my classmates will support you. They also like your barbecue very much," Ashido Mina said seriously. "Actually, I want to say that I don't have so much time to open a barbecue restaurant, but I will definitely open it in the future. As for the funds, I don't have to worry about my classmates." Chi Feng smiled slightly. "Really?" Ashido Mina asked excitedly. When I am invincible." Chi Feng looked up at the sky and sighed. Ashido Mina was a little dumbfounded, then sighed and left, still muttering to herself. Classmate Chi Feng is very sick. Chapter 154 Black Kobe. At noon the next day, Chi Feng and Inoue Ying finished their lunch and drove to Tokyo by car. According to Kurosawa Kazunami, as long as he arrives at the Heroes Underground venue in Tokyo, someone will receive him and arrange a place to stay. After getting out of the car, Chi Feng found a place where no one was there and put on the underworld suit. Tomorrow is the qualifying contest. Even if there are professional heroes in Tokyo who want to catch him, he can't keep a low profile. And another 100 meters ahead is Tokyo's Underground Heroes venue. Tokyo's Underground Heroes venue is under a seemingly steel fortress. Unlike Shibuya's Underground Heroes venue, Shibuya's Underground Heroes venue is under a large shopping mall. And Tokyo's is a steel fortress with a height of more than 10 meters. It looks small on the surface, but it gets bigger as it goes down. After receiving Chi Feng's news, Kurosawa Yilong was already waiting at the door. When he saw Chi Feng, he was relieved and greeted him with a smile. "Brother Haya, you are really on time." Chi Feng laughed. "Brother Kurosawa, is the game taking place in the Tokyo Underground Heroes venue?" "Yes, the protection here is the safest. No one can enter except the Underground Heroes." Kurosawa pointed to the entrance and said, "I will accompany you to the ground floor to receive the accommodation card. Tonight it's a dinner for the Imperial League. As a member of the Imperial League, we naturally want to participate." Chi Feng nodded and followed Kurosawa to the negative floor. In fact, he didn't know much about the Imperial League, but he didn't know the background of the Underground Heroes in order to get the name of Wood Expulsion. Now he has become a member of the Imperial League inexplicably. In fact, Chi Feng felt a little awkward. Stand on the edge. Chi Feng had just entered the negative floor and found that there were still a lot of people picking up the card. He had lined up, but the man in front suddenly yelled at him. Chi Feng frowned. Everyone was queuing. You yell lousy? Just when Chi Feng was looking for the other party's theory, Kurosawa whispered in Chi Feng's ear. Brother Dark Knight, he is the third Holy Three-Island Breeze in Hokkaido. The game is approaching, so it's better not to mess with him. As soon as Chi Feng waved his hand, the third sage dared to be so arrogant. He really wasn't used to the other party. He patted Mishima Kei's on the shoulder and said, don't act in front of lousy, you are not qualified. Huh? Mishima Feng turned his head and stared at Chi Feng coldly, with a tendency to explode. Where are you from, the trash? Dared to talk to me like that? As soon as Mishima Kei said it, all the powerhouses on the first floor looked over. The third holy of Hokkaido. Mishima Kei's was basically known to everyone, but not many people knew Chi Feng, or even none. People know. Bai Shui, who leaned on the chair and closed her eyes, suddenly opened her eyes and smiled when she saw Chi Feng. A seventh sage has such a temperament that she dared to challenge the third sage, but she is not going to help. She wants to look at the show. Read more at hotmtlnovel.zi. There are not many Shibuya 7 sages and 5 kings present, and even Mansion is not here, so few people know Chi Feng. Even if they do, no one will stand up to help Chi Feng at this time, unless that person wants to be with him. Mishima's style is right. I'm not rubbish, I'm the 7th sage of Shibuya. Why, haven't I heard of my legend? Chi Feng smiled and said casually, but his momentum was beyond doubt. The 7th sage of Shibuya. Mishima Kei's suddenly laughed. A 7th sage dared to be arrogant in front of his 3rd sage. Is it ignorance or death? For a while, most of the strong people on the first floor laughed. It was not Mishima Kei's that everyone laughed, but Chi Feng, the 7th sage of Shibuya. Although it is said that the 3 emperors, 7 sages and 5 kings of Shibuya are very rich in gold. But no one would think how high the gold content of the 7th holy is, just stepping into the ranks of the 7 holy ones. If you are not careful, you will not even have a chance to turn over. No matter where the 3rd sage is, its strength is much stronger than the next few sages. The first 3 emperors are a watershed, and the first 3 sages are also a watershed. Chi Feng looked at the people who laughed at him and didn't care, but just stared at Mishima Kei's and said, now lousy doesn't care about you. When waiting for the qualifying competition, I hope you don't be in the ring with me. You. Mishima Kei's immediately wanted to do it, and suddenly felt a chill coming from behind him. He subconsciously made a cold war and turned his head to look. Chi Feng smiled. Okay, your father is waiting. I saw a man surrounded by black air standing not far away staring at him. It felt like Shinigami was staring at you. For a moment, the air around him was filled with a kind of death and chill. Mishima Kei's shut up immediately, turned and stood in line honestly. He knew exactly who this man was. Chi Feng also felt the chill. When he saw the black man, Chi Feng had 2 words in his heart, so strong. Black Kobe took the dead energy back into his body, and did not continue to pay attention to this side, which meant that enough was enough.
Read more at hotmtlnovel.zi. Chinese MTL fan fiction, second element novel can be read at hotmtl novel for free.
This man is just the opposite of the God Fist. The God Fist seems to be bathed in radiance, like an angel, while this man is like the incarnation of darkness in the abyss. Mishima Kei's stopped abruptly after laughing for a while, and said coldly, you trash can't be in the same arena with me, but if you are really in the arena, I will call you dad. Everyone honestly lined up to receive the accommodation card, and no one dared to say one more word. Even Chi Feng did not dare to speak. No one dared to speak for a while. The person in charge of the game management this time was the 2nd emperor of Miyazaki, Black Kobe, and no one dared to be wild in front of him. Black Kobe, the 2nd emperor of Miyazaki, is rumored that his strength can be compared with the 1st emperor of Miyazaki, but because of the reason that he is unwilling to be the 1st emperor, he will always be 2nd. Mishima Kei's back was soaked. He hadn't noticed the existence of Black Kobe before. He thought that there was only the 1st saint here at most. He didn't expect Black Kobe to wait here so early. Fortunately, he didn't make a move. Dead. But the side effects of the Black Kobe quirk are also very tricky. After releasing the dead breath, he cannot bathe and sleep within a month, resulting in a very dirty body, which is why the other person is very dark, and it seems that his mental state is not very good. This is not the most terrifying. The most terrifying thing is that if the death energy of Black Kobe enters the body, it can drain all the anger of the opponent, causing people to age and die quickly, and it is impossible to fight with it. It's okay for normal people not to take a bath within a month. If they don't sleep for a month, they might have died long ago, but Black Kobe is different. He can't die. It can be said to be invincible, but no one would treat him as the 2nd child because the strength is too terrifying. The black energy that surrounds the body is rumored to be dead. As long as it is contaminated with a little bit, the whole person's luck will quickly decline, and bad things will happen. It happened one after another. Chapter 155. Who are you?
The scenes of the battle with the Poison King a few days ago are still vivid. The Poison King is the 3rd emperor. He can be suppressed if his strength is not fully developed, not to mention this man in the dark. Kai Feng thinks, this guy's strength is definitely much stronger than Poison King.
Kurosawa Yiren was also taken aback. He thought that there would be a big battle. If Mishima K's shot Kai Feng, he would definitely help. At present, they're a team, that is, grasshoppers on a rope. No matter what, you have to help, even if Mishima K's teammates are here, you can't shrink back. As a result, the second Emperor Miyazaki made a shot, which really made him jump off. Fortunately, Kuro Kobe knew the importance and didn't do it directly, otherwise it would really be over. After Kai Feng received the accommodation card, Kurosawa walked over and said in Kai Feng's ear, "The scary person just now is the second Emperor Miyazaki, and his strength will not be weaker than the first Emperor." Fortunately, he did not make a move. "Otherwise you and I will both be in trouble." Kai Feng nodded, patted Kurosawa's shoulder and asked, "Aren't these 7 sages and 5 kings have such a bad temper?" "Oh, the underground heroes has all eyes higher than the top, not to mention the 3 emperors, 7 saints and 5 kings. There are not many such good tempers as I am, it depends on people." Kurosawa sighed and said, "Underground heroes is like this. He is very grumpy and will fight if he doesn't agree with him. The quality of heroes cannot be compared with that of professional heroes, but there are also high-quality ones, such as his Kurosawa Ichiban. In that case, I don't have to pretend to be gentle. These guys are asking for trouble. I will remember those who laughed at me, and I will return them one by one." Kai Feng sneered. Under his observation, just now among those who laughed at him were not only the 7 saints, but also the 5 kings. To be honest, now the 5 kings can't even stuff their teeth in front of him. If Shoto Todoroki were here, he would be able to defeat a few 5 kings. Is it lively and beautiful? When Kai Feng left the underground heroes venue, he found that Bai Shui had also followed. Bai Shui still wears a veil to prevent the world from seeing her. "I just didn't expect your temper to be so aggressive."
"I have a bad temper." Kai Feng was amused. "If I have a bad temper, the mischievous Mishima is a dog temper, and I will bite it if I see it."
"Are you looking for death?" A voice sounded, and a man behind Bai Shui walked out. Kai Feng observed that this guy's breath was not weak, and there was a breath of the sea on his body.
He is the second sage Niwa Seaman of Kanagawa, and he is probably a teammate with Mishima K's. Kurosawa reminded him quietly from the side.
Kai Feng can be regarded as taking it. Each of them is really aggressive. Turned to look at Bai Shui. Bai Shui smiled. "Okay, I admit that you have a good temper." Kai Feng looked at Niwa Heron. "Are you a teammate of Sanbu Feng?" "You?" Niwa Heron wanted to have an attack, but after thinking about it, he suddenly laughed. "Yes, a slick mouth is so powerful. I hope you will ask for your blessings in the qualifying competition." Kai Feng coldly said. "Get out. Read more at hotmtlnovel.zi. There's a kind." Niwa Heron cast a cold glance at the Kai Feng trio before leaving. Bai Shui's face was also a little hard to look like, and even she stared at her. "Didn't the old lady provoke you?" After Niwa Kairan walked away, Kai Feng looked at the accommodation card, and when he was thinking about where the hotel is, Kurosawa said, "We have 2 rooms and the hotel is called Daiichikyo, which is currently the most luxurious in Tokyo. One of the hotels." Kai Feng expressed his understanding, then looked at Bai Shui and asked, "You should be staying in this hotel too, or should you go together?" "Forget it, I don't want to be held hostage." Bai Shui left after speaking without stopping. "This woman is a bit interesting." Kai Feng smacked his lips. Bai Shui was very beautiful and wanted to develop a relationship. However, this woman is a little bit of her own way, and she doesn't seem to be caught by anything. "It was the 4th saint of Shibuya, right?" Kurosawa smiled and saw Kai Feng's meaning. "Yes." Kai Feng nodded. "This woman is interesting." "I think so, it's different." Kurosawa smiled, took out the phone and looked at the time. "It's almost time, let's go to the room first." "It is good." Read more at hotmtlnovel.zi. Chinese MTL fan fiction, second element novel can be read at hotmtl novel for free. Kai Feng immediately covered his lower body, and a woman appeared in front of him, who was standing above the bath looking at him. When you arrive at the hotel entrance, you don't need to use the card, you can directly scan your face for recognition. The accommodation card you received at the Tokyo Underground Heroes venue is just a registration card. Kurosawa Kazunami had obviously seen this kind of environment, and was not too surprised. He greeted Kai Feng and went back to his room, saying that he was going to sleep in the afternoon. When the water was about to fill the pool, Kai Feng took off his clothes and went into the pool to enjoy this relaxing moment. Who knows, the next moment, his hair was instantly horrified. "Are you the 7 sages or the 5 kings?" The woman did not answer Kai Feng's words, but asked instead. "FK. Who are you?" Originally, Kai Feng thought it was a standard room with a double bed, but only after entering it found that there are actually 2 separate rooms, baths and kitchens, all of which are independent. Kai Feng didn't care either. After returning to his own separate room, he locked the door, and then used air manipulation to kill all the bacteria in the bath, as well as all the dead spots that had not been cleaned up. This woman was wearing a purple outfit, her figure was very good, her lordosis was raised, and her lipstick was purple. This made Kai Feng feel that she had lost her beauty. Although the facial features were good, Kai Feng was not interested. The most important point is how this woman appeared in his room. "Oh, I'm sorry, Let me introduce myself first. My name is Barkonana. Barkonana showed a charming smile, but Chi Feng didn't think it was charming, but felt a little creepy.
After cleaning the bath, Chi Feng turned on the faucet. Hot water quickly accumulated in the pool, and there was a fruit plate on the balcony of the room. Chi Feng lay on a chair and ate, feeling very comfortable. This Daiichi hotel is about 100 floors high. The room they live in is on the 90th floor. It takes 5 or 6 minutes to get up from the first floor. This is the premise that the elevator is fast enough. Fortunately, Chi Feng reacted quickly. His face was already blurred by the air, but Chi Feng didn't know if this woman had seen his face clearly before. When Chi Feng came to the first Beijing hotel, he knew what luxury is. He has only stayed in hotels on the earth, but he has seen many hotel furnishings on a tablet computer, but he has never lived in it. You appeared in my room, shouldn't you answer my question first? Chi Feng's tone became a little cold. In this case, he can completely subdue this woman.
The air handling is so good and spotless. Chapter 156 Teacher Saitama? Chi Feng thought about it carefully, and finally knew who Barkonana was. She was the second holy in Tokyo. When he came to the Underground Heroes venue in Tokyo with Kurosawa some time ago, he saw Barkonana on the ranking list.
Okay, I know, then the second sage, how did you come to my room? Chi Feng cares about this. People who can appear in his room out of thin air are definitely not ordinary.
At present, there are 2 people known to Chi Feng that have this ability. The first is to pass million, his quirk is penetration, and the other is Yongjixing, teleport. These 2 people can appear in him without warning. In the room, then this woman's quirk must be similar to the previous 2. This kind of quirk is very difficult to grow to a certain level, but Chi Feng is not a soft persimmon, anyone can pinch. I can't tell you this, you just need to answer me, are you the 7 sages or the 5 kings? Barkonana said flatly, looking at Chi Feng Chiguo's body without any reaction.
7 saints. Chi Feng answered very concisely. He would not do anything before he knew the woman's quirk. What is the holy? Barkonana asked next. The 7th holy.
Okay. Excuse me, then. Barkonana sighed, and suddenly a gap opened in the space behind her, and she took a step back and disappeared into the room. What quirk is this? Chi Feng was shocked. The feeling that the gap can lead to any place is a bit like tearing apart the space of the plane. But Chi Feng knows that this is impossible. Even if the quirk is strong, it is impossible to tear the plane, so the quirk of Barkonana has yet to be verified. Chi Feng suddenly smiled. This Bark Nana is a bit interesting. It seems to be looking for teammates. Maybe Kurosawa is the next one. But doesn't she know that all the teammates who live in the same room are all teammates? The afternoon passed quickly. When Chi Feng opened the door, he saw Kurosawa Yilong coming out. At this moment, Kurosawa Yilong's expression was a little bit unpleasant. Chi Feng laughed. Is that woman in your room? Kurosawa stunned for a while, then looked at Chi Feng in surprise and asked, did she go to your room too? Chi Feng nodded and said that he was tacitly aware. He looked at Kurosawa with a smile. I think you are not frightened. Fortunately, the game will not start until tomorrow. In the evening, Namba will show up again, so you can just do it. She will do it. But I can't beat it. Kurosawa said with a black face, if he fights too early, he will do it. Chi Feng chuckled and did not speak. After opening the door, he walked out and headed to the open-air restaurant on the top floor. Read more at hotmtlnovel.zi. One of the biggest features of Daiichi Hotel is the open-air restaurant on the top floor, where you can almost enjoy the whole view of Tokyo, and it can give people a different feeling at night, looking at the mountains and small mountains. Participating in the qualifying contest are the 7 sages and the 5 kings. As for the 3 emperors, except for the Black Kobe from Miyazaki Underground Heroes, there is no second 3 emperors, which makes Chi Feng's abacus empty.
Originally, he thought that each region would send a 3 emperor, but that was not the case. If Chi Feng came to Chi Feng, he could thank him in person. Even if he didn't come, Chao Baichao would be fine. This is said to be an old Taoist priest. I should have a chat with myself. When Chi Feng and Kurosawa entered the top-level restaurant, there were already nearly half of the people inside.
These people wore all kinds of clothes, including men and women. Among them, there were more men and women were only a few. Just a few, they were all sitting on the same table, and Bai Shui was among them. This may be the arrogance of these women. They don't want to be with men, and they don't even sit together. Chi Feng's gaze swept across the round table at the dinner. He saw Man Shan sitting alone in the corner, holding his arms in his hands and closing his eyes to rest. When Chi Feng's gaze swept over, Man Shan seemed to feel sensitive and opened. With his eyes closed, it happened to be in line with Chi Feng. There was a hint of puzzlement and a hint of anger in Man Shan's eyes, with a little arrogance. The legend of the night brought him too much shock. He thought it was just a little hard to kill Ant, who knew that his strength could be equal to him. Chi Feng smiled at Man Shan, ignoring his eyes, and randomly found a middle position and sat down, with the table next to Bai Shui, which seemed a little closer. After Chi Feng sat down, she found out that Bai Shui's table was basically all beautiful women, but some didn't know her. Except for Barkonana and Bai Shui, the other female Chi Feng didn't know what her name was. Bai Shui obviously saw Chi Feng, but he didn't mean to say hello. Chi Feng is not passionate either. Since Bai Shui wants to pretend not to know him, then don't say hello. Kurosawa sat down and took out a pack of cigarettes from his arms, took out one of them, lit one of them, and sighed after taking a breath. There are few people who can participate in the Imperial League for 2 consecutive years. It's the first time I participated. Last time I was in this position of the 5th sacred by someone else. As time goes by, more and more people come in. Chi Feng feels different strengths and weaknesses in these people. Among them, there are at least a dozen powerful people, and at least 5 are occupied by the heroes in Shibuya Underground. Are you Saitama, teacher? Chi Feng was startled. The bald eyes looked too like Saitama, but Chi Feng knew it could not be Saitama. Kurosawa stood up and said to Chi Wang, if you don't mind, take my seat. Kurosawa patted Chi Feng on the shoulder and said, King Chi is the #1 saint in Kyoto, and he is very powerful. Chi Feng was just surprised, but didn't mean to give up his seat. He looked at King Chi and asked, what do you want my seat to do? Aren't there still several places on the side? Chi Feng immediately understood that this guy wanted to be closer to the beauty. A black line crossed Chi Feng's forehead. This name is simply literal. There are a lot of underground heroes that rise up every year, and all of them come through this elimination system, but there are also strong people who can stay in their position for several consecutive sessions. For example, Bai Shui has participated in 2 qualifying competitions, but it seems that her performance in the qualifying competitions is not very outstanding, so everyone cares about her appearance, whether she looks good or not, and her strength is just average. Can you give me your position? A flat voice sounded, and Chi Feng looked up and saw a bald head smiling at himself. This. Chi Wang grabbed his bald head a little embarrassingly, and glanced at Bai Shui's table with reckless eyes. Chi Feng nodded and said, it's normal for a new generation to replace an old one. You are wrong. My name is Wang Qi. Although I am a little bit close, I am very close. Wang Qi smiled. Chi Feng rubbed his eyes, thinking that he was wrong. Isn't this Mr. Saitama? Read more at hotmtlnovel.zi. Chinese MTL fan fiction, second element novel can be read at hotmtl novel for free. For this kind of strong Kurosawa, he did not dare to offend him. He did not have the fearless nerves of Chi Feng. Everyone dared to offend. You must know that underground heroes are distributed throughout the country, and there are different organizations behind each holy. So offending people is not a good thing. The rest come from different places, but the strength is still not to be underestimated. But Chi Feng knew that Bai Shui's strength was definitely more than that. He might have deliberately revealed his weakness, so no one paid attention. Chapter 157 King Chi looked at the location of Kurosawa Yilong, and he agreed that it was good. He didn't want to trouble the person in the black cloak, just wanted a treasure. Kurosawa changed positions and sat on the other side of Chi Feng. Chi Feng is a bit speechless. Is there a difference in the distance between the 2 positions? However, Wang Qi was a little overjoyed, and he was already close to the nearest female saint.
Chi Feng didn't care about King Chi anymore, his eyes kept sweeping at the entrance. As more people came in, the seats became less and less. When a man stepped into the restaurant, Chi Feng stood up. Get up, his eyes are full of killing intent.
That's right, Chi Feng saw someone. This man was tall and burly. He had never seen him before, but he wore a mask on his face and his body had a breath of fire. Adding these 2 points together, Chi Feng immediately locked in. A person. The guy who wanted to burn Sister Ying to death at the beginning of the arson did not expect to appear here, and he came with the title of Underground Heroes. Brother Dark Knight, what's wrong with you? Kurosawa Yilong also stood up. He didn't understand why Chi Feng suddenly behaved like this, or he saw something. Who is that guy? Chi Feng pointed his finger at the masked man who had just entered. Kurosawa looked at the masked man and couldn't remember. Although he knew a lot of the 7 saints and 5 kings, he didn't know all of them. He really couldn't remember this guy. His name is Yi Yan, and he is our 2nd king in Kyoto. King Chi, who was sitting on the side, suddenly said, Yi Yan is theirs, he naturally knows. Very good. Chi Feng thanked Queen Chi and sat down. Since he already knows the name of the other party, it is enough to ask alone at that time. If this guy is really related to the Fujiwara convenience store arson, then Chi Feng will never let it go.
After Chi Feng sat down, everyone was there. At this time, a middle-aged man and the 2nd emperor of Miyazaki Black Kobe walked in, and all the noise stopped instantly. The middle-aged man walked up the red steps accompanied by the Black Kobe, took out a microphone under everyone's eyes and said, Hello everyone, I think there are many people sitting here who are familiar with me, but there are some people who don't know me, so I'll introduce myself here.
My name is Da Muxian. I am the manager of the Imperial League in charge of the qualifying competition.
Therefore, I preside over every edition of the Imperial League. No one in the audience speaks, no one is the first bird in this kind of occasion, and there is nothing to interrupt, just listen carefully. Chi Feng sat on the seat, his eyes kept sweeping back and forth on Mishima Kase and Niwa Kiran. These 2 guys were sitting not far away. From time to time, Chi Feng could still feel the hostility of these 2 guys. In this qualifying competition, people in the first 3 groups can have the opportunity to visit the Imperial League.
As for whether they can be favored by the Emperor, it depends on your own good fortune, but a newly developed W-type reagent is definitely there. Yes, is your heart moving? Mu Xian chuckled. Read more at hotmtlnovel.zi. Everyone got excited at this moment. Who of you here doesn't want to become stronger?
Everyone's goal is the same, and W reagent is the best interpretation product. This thing can quickly and greatly enhance a person's quirk potential and obtain a major breakthrough in strength. Only Chi Feng was the only one present with a relatively plain expression. To be honest, Chi Feng just feels curious about this kind of thing, but if he is crazy for this, he won't be enough. Now he still has thousands of rescue points. Even if he can only draw a few quirk promotion pills, the effect is not as good as before, but Chi Feng also thinks it is better than that of W reagent. Damuxian pressed his hand to signal for silence, and everyone was quiet. Then he explained some precautions in the flow of tomorrow's game, and then left. Obviously, he didn't want to eat together. The same is true for Heikobi, leaving with Oki Xian. At this time, all the talents began to eat, and plates of dishes were brought up from below. It was dark at night, but because of the lights, the top floor was brighter than during the day. People who eat here are self-catering, and only a few people who are familiar with it will talk a few words. After Chi Feng and Kurosawa had a few glasses of wine, the king of Qi also came to join in the fun, took the red wine in his hand and patted Chi Feng. Come on, let's drink one. Chi Feng didn't refuse either. He touched the cup with Qi Wang and drank it, and then asked with a smile, can you tell me about your quirk? I heard you are very strong. Wang Qi put down the wine glass and looked at Chi Feng. He also smiled, it's no secret that I am strong. Half of the people here know what my quirk is, and I won't hide it from you. Let me tell you the truth. I just need a punch to solve it with me. Chi Feng looked at King Qi with his eyes wide open, and asked a little uncertainly, a punch? Are you sure it is a punch?
Yeah, the secret that everyone knows is not a secret, but the price I paid for this punch is a bit high. Qi Wang scratched his bald head somewhat annoyed. What's the price? Chi Feng asked immediately. If Qi Wang can knock down his opponent with a single punch, what is the difference with Mr. Saitama? Obviously there are too many similarities between the two. Qi Wang sighed quietly. The price is that every time I punch such a punch, the feelings in my heart will be deeper, so I can't leave a woman at the moment. As long as I leave a woman for more than a day, I will feel uncomfortable and die. This. Chi Feng was dumbfounded. What kind of side effect is this? It's sex and thought, and it takes a woman to sustain his life. If Chi Feng was given such a quirk, he would not want it. It's no wonder that Wang Qi wanted him in this position from the very beginning. It turned out to be to ease the sense of sex. It seems that he was wrong. Kurosawa Yiren was also a little shocked. He had known the power of King Qi a long time ago. He had been the position of the first saint for several years. This position was untouched. Even the three emperors had to give King Qi face, because if the three emperors were not careful, being hit by King Qi also defeated with one punch. But the prerequisite is that you want to hit, and you have to hit it to the point. Legend of the Night, the seventh sage of Shibuya, really courageous. Chi Feng was drinking happily. When he heard the disappointing words, he turned to look. Mishima Kei's and Niwa Kiren stood on the side and sneered at themselves. Chi Feng waved his hand and said, where did the wild dog come from? Let's go cool. You're looking for death. Mishima Wind is about to break out immediately, and now Heikobi is not here, but no one can stop him. Niwa Kiren stretched out his hand to block Mishima Wind that was about to go wild. Don't worry, if you meet this guy tomorrow, just break his leg. Oh yes, you have to call dad. Chi Feng laughed, I don't have your two trash sons. Niwa Heron, a good-tempered person, couldn't bear it. Just when the scene was a little uncontrollable, a voice came from the side. Two rubbish don't block Lousy's way. Man Shan walked over at a firm pace, standing behind Niwa Kiren and Mishima Kei's, a full head taller. Chapter 158. Mishima Kei's face turned blue. He didn't expect that his dignified third sage in Hokkaido would be provoked one after another. This tall guy seemed to have some strength, so he didn't do anything for a while. The most important thing is that Oki Xian said that it is not a game during this period. Violence cannot be used indiscriminately, otherwise it will be declared eliminated. Who are you? Niwa's sea people obviously saw the extraordinary of Mansion, but there was no need to give a good face if they dared to provoke them. Man Shan held his head high and looked at Niwa Kiren, the sixth sage of Shibuya. Man Shan. The sixth saint? Niwa Heron and Mishima Kei's were all laughed angrily. A sixth saint dared to be so arrogant because they couldn't do it, right? Any cat and dog can bully them. He is the third sage of the Three Island Winds, and the Niwa Seaman is the second sage. Which one is not the existence that crushes the other sages? Niwa Kiren suddenly smiled, patted Mishima Kei's on the shoulder and said, it seems that we were wrong. We met two stupid people. In that case, we don't have to worry about it, and we can do it tomorrow. Mishimakaze nodded in agreement. One of the two guys is Shibuya's sixth sage and the other is Shibuya's seventh sage. They are both the bottom-most existence. To put it bluntly, they are better than the five kings, but they are still rubbish. Seeing Niwa Heron and Mishima Feng leaving behind, Chi Feng didn't say anything. What these two guys didn't know was that whether it was Chi Feng or Mansion, neither of them could be beaten. Mansion snorted coldly as he watched the departure of Niwa Heron and Mishima Wind, and then turned his head to look at Chi Feng and said, I hope that you will meet you this time, and you will be fully conscious. I will return this sentence to you as it is. Chi Feng said flatly, and he also felt very mysterious to Mansion Chi Feng, at least not inferior to him in strength. Mansion didn't talk any more nonsense and left directly. Although the food here was expensive, it didn't suit his appetite. Chi Feng finally went back after eating a few king crabs. After this dinner, Chi Feng understood the approximate strength of these opponents. It should be possible to get the top 3 in his group. However, Chi Feng would not care. Although the ranking of the 7 sages and the 5 kings is correct, no one knows the gold content in it. For example, he is the 7th sage, and now he can play against the 1st sage. There is also the Barbarian Mountain. The 6th holy, the strength is not weaker than the 1st holy. This kind of gold content is very terrible. If the other underground heroes are like this, then this battle will be difficult to fight, and there will be difficulties and obstacles everywhere. Read more at hotmtlnovel.zi. After returning to the room, Chi Feng didn't sleep. He sat in front of the window and hit himself with lightning to achieve the purpose of forging. Now Chi Feng's physical strength is at least 3 times stronger than before, an ordinary sword cannot be used. Opening his skin, unless the person with the sword is not weak, can he hurt him? There is no noise in the quiet night. Resting on such a high floor, the horns of cars on the ground are already inaudible. If that woman reappears, Chi Feng will never show mercy and take it straight away. After all, the thunderbolt forging is one of his secrets.
Only one thing Chi Feng felt surprised. The Poison King already knew that he was a double Quirk. As the 3rd emperor, he did not disclose the news. Now no one knows that his identity of the Legend of the Night is a double Quirk. Chi Feng doesn't know the thoughts of the Poison King, but as long as he has enough strength, Chi Feng will solve the Poison King as soon as possible. After the thunder and lightning body forging, Chi Feng began to absorb the aura. Absorbing that inaudible aura in such a big city really made Chi Feng feel a headache. He has been wandering on the 4th level of Chi training for a while, but his cultivation is still the same as that of a snail crawling. If you don't rely on foreign objects and want to break through to a higher level, you don't have to think about it.
In desperation, Chi Feng can only sleep. The next day, Kurosawa knocked on Chi Feng's door, and Chi Feng just packed up and opened the door and walked out. Now we go to the Tokyo Underground Heroes venue, and the game has 1 hour to start, Kurosawa said with excitement.
The ranking contest is about the destiny of every underground heroes. It can be said that this destiny is in the hands of the Imperial League. As long as the Imperial League values you, your strength must be improved quickly. But if the Imperial League abandons you, a new powerhouse will immediately take your place. Chi Feng understands Kurosawa Yilang's mood, and Chi Feng also knows that Kurosawa Yilang does not want to be in the top 3, it should be good to be in the top 10. After all, Kurosawa Ichiban is also the 5th saint. Although it is the 5th saint in Tokyo, it is impossible to be better than the first 3 saints. As for Chi Feng, the 7th saint, Kurosawa Ichiban also has difficulties. When the two came to the entrance of the Tokyo Underground venue, they found that the level of martial law outside today was very strong. There was no one in the surrounding 100 meters, all of them were people in black uniforms. When Chi Feng and Kurosawa walked over, at that time, a series of verifications such as identity checking are also required. Finally, the two reached the -6th floor, which is the ultimate arena on the last floor. Except for the 72 7 saints and 5 kings, the rest are audiences over 40 years old. Obviously it is either rich or expensive. Looking around, Chi Feng has 6 regional camps, namely the Tokyo area, Shibuya area, Miyazaki area, Kanagawa area, Hokkaido area and Kyoto area. And Chi Feng had already seen Shirayuki and Manzan sitting in the Shibuya area, so he had to say hello to Kurosawa and head towards Shibuya. It was also the first time that Kurosawa participated in a qualifying contest, so I don't know the meaning of this, but since the area is separated, it obviously requires the 7 holy 5 kings in the same place to sit together. Half an hour later, everyone was present. Hei Kobe walked in with Oki Shion. Under the dazzling light, Oki Shion stepped onto the huge arena. I won't talk nonsense. The 7 saints and 5 kings in the 6 regions total 72 people.
That is to say, there are 36 groups. Your 36 groups will be eliminated in the competition.
The rules are very simple. You can't kill. If you kill, then I will declare the elimination directly. As for the lack of arms and legs, it doesn't matter. If you want to be strong, how can you not be injured?
Da Mushin's gaze circled around everyone, and continued. There are 2 people in each group, and the opponents are also 2. If one of them defeats 2 people, then the other side will be eliminated directly. If both sides win and lose and if it's a tie, then it will advance to the next round of the game. That's it until the top 10 finals. Only those who enter the top 10 can rest for one night and go to tomorrow's final. Everyone understands that Okishen said very succinctly. This kind of game is a bit like a wheel fight. For example, in the Chi Feng group, when Kurosawa loses, he will replace Kurosawa and go up to fight against the opponent. If he loses, then his opponent will also come up to fight Chi Feng. Okay, now we hand over to the computer system to arrange the match table for the game. Everyone can go to the toilet during this period. When the game starts, there will be no chance. Damuxian finally joked and walked away. Ring. Chapter 159 Strange Watermelon Sword Under everyone's eyes. Everyone's name jumped out on the circular screen above the ring, and then the scrambled reorganization between the two groups began to match each other. Chi Feng sits in the last row of Shibuya area. It is very simple. He is the lowest ranked, so he naturally sits in the last row. Chi Feng noticed that there is a man with a sword around his waist in the first few rows, his eyes closed all the time, from the opponent's body. It can be seen from the breath of the air that this person is suppressing strength. Chi Feng was secretly surprised. Is the strength of Shibuya underground heroes so terrible, all of them hide their strength? If he guessed correctly, the man with a sword on his waist is Shibuya's third sage, Kitakura Road Ichiro. Finally, the name on the screen stopped beating, and the order of everyone's battle came out. Chi Feng looked at it. It was really Yuan Jia Lu Jai. Their group directly matched the group of Niwa Heron, God's Will. Niwa Kirin and Mishima Kaze were also taken aback. The group they wanted to match most was the Underworld Legend group, and the result was really fulfilled. Ha ha ha. Mishima Kaze burst into laughter. Let's see how you run. Niwa Siren was also very excited. He didn't expect God to be so kind to them, and he actually matched the group of the Legend of the Night. This time he could retaliate happily. Anyone who lacks an arm or a leg is fine, as long as he doesn't kill the opponent. Kurosawa looked at the matching results on the screen and looked a little ugly. He was really afraid of something. The Niwa Kirin group was the last he wanted to match. Those two people are very strong, the top 3 sages, and both he and Brother Dark Knight came after the 3 sages, and belonged to the bottom of the existence, which was very unfair. Indeed, there are a lot of unfairness. There are too many groups among the 5 kings to keep warm, but is it useful? Random encounters with 2 7 sages are a dead end. Therefore, this kind of ranking contest is cruel to the 5 kings, and everyone's eyes are on the 7 sages, which is what has attracted much attention. Chi Feng's heart was calm, and he even wanted to laugh a little. Niwa Heron and Mishima Feng were really bloody for 8 lifetimes. Whoever meets him, they just want to meet him. The first group, Nishio Yuda, Lang Zigyu, fight, Shino Swordman, 9 lives. Oki Shion announced the start of the game, and the contestants from both sides took the stage. Chi Feng observed that these people are from different camps, that is, just like him. Kurosawa Kazunami is the 7 sages of Tokyo, and he is the 7 sages of Shibuya. Such combinations seem to be widespread. In the first game, Nishio Yuda played, Lang Zigyu waited in the audience, and then the battle was 9 lives. Read more at hotmtlnovel.zi. Nishio Yuda is the 4th sage of Hokkaido, and Nishio Mei is the 4th sage of Kanagawa. The rankings of the two are the same, but they don't know how strong they are. After taking the stage, Nishio Yuda did not hesitate at all. Suddenly 2 more watermelon sword appeared in his hands, and the corners of his mouth looked at 9 life with a smile. 9 lives is a nickname, but he is actually a young man, but with 9 tails on his butt, and Quirk is 9 lives. Yes, there are indeed 9 lives. Seeing Nishio Yuda taking out the watermelon sword, Kujome asked Okishen, can we still use weapons for the game? Oki Shion nodded, then picked up the microphone and said to everyone, the watermelon sword is a quirk of Nishio Yuda, but I will say here, as long as it is not a weapon of mass destruction, you can bring it on stage. Just say it again. It is the first time that 9 Life has participated in a qualifying competition. He doesn't talk a lot, so he doesn't know the rules. Now that Yuda Nishio takes out the watermelon sword, he is a little flustered. Obviously will fall short. However, the reason why he is called 9 Lives is that he has the time and opportunity to drag the other party to death. As long as the other party has no strength, let him kill him. There was a smile on the corner of Nishio's mouth, and he looked at the 9 lives rushing towards him plainly, which was cut down with a watermelon sword. Looking at Nishio Yuda's unremarkable slash, Nishio suddenly felt relieved. With this unruly slash, he could hide away at will. It seemed that he overestimated his opponent. Unexpectedly, the next moment he was horrified. The watermelon sword that was cut at him seemed to have eyes. No matter how he avoided it, he couldn't avoid it. In the eyes of outsiders, 9 lives were cut by the watermelon sword by himself. Puff! Nishio Yuda's watermelon sword directly split the 9 lives rushing towards him in half, and the blood instantly licked the ground. The people present are all people who have seen blood in the world, so not many people were surprised that 9 life was split in half, but a few women exclaimed in a low voice, not knowing that it was the sword of Nishio Yuda. Still marveling at the blood in this place. The 9 lives that had become 2 have suddenly healed again. He quickly stepped back and wiped the bloodline off of his body, looking at Yuda Nishio in shock. What happened to this guy's watermelon sword? If he wasn't 9 lives, he would have died with this sword. His dignified 4th sage died so easily. It can be seen that there is a problem with Nishio Yuda's watermelon sword. The smile at the corner of Nishio's mouth kept hanging. He noticed that the 9 tails behind 9 lives were missing 1, which meant that there were only 8 lives left. If 9 lives only had 1 life, he wouldn't directly come up with the assassin. No one knows how powerful his watermelon sword is, only he himself knows that many people have died under his watermelon sword by Yuda Nishio. The 7 sages and 5 kings present were all observing Nishio Yuda.
Although everyone looked like 9 Life was going to die by themselves, in fact, many people understood that the real problem was Nishio Yuda's watermelon sword. Wang Qi touched his chin and said to himself, I should be able to break this watermelon sword with one punch. The people around were silent. It's normal for King Qi to break with a punch, but they can't. You have to study Nishio Yuda's watermelon sword carefully. Kujo Mei also wanted to study what happened to Nishio Yuda's watermelon sword, but Nishio Yuda did not give him time to think, so he rushed up and cut it down with a watermelon sword. 9 Life was shocked, and suddenly jumped up before he could react. However, the watermelon sword seemed to be tracking. It was clearly not the sky, but it was smashed into the sky. He was split in half again, and blood spewed out.
Nishio Mei was resurrected again, and he looked at Nishio Yuda not far away in horror. In such a big ring, he could not even escape a watermelon sword. How could he fight this? The physique that he is proud of has no room for display under this watermelon sword. 9 lives are going crazy. How can he avoid the watermelon sword? Yes, he is not thinking about how to defeat Yuda Nishio, but how to avoid the fatal blow of the watermelon sword.
Number 160 Chapter 160. However, Nishio Yuda had rushed towards him again, and another watermelon sword slashed.
The result was the same, the 9 lives were split in half again. After recovery, he was split in half again. Recovery, 2 halves.
After being hacked to death 8 times, 9 lives discovered that something was wrong with Nishio Yuda. At this moment, the facial features on Nishio Yuda's face have disappeared, which means that the current Nishio Yuda can neither see nor hear, and is no different from waste. It seems that this is his side effect. Nishio knew that he had one last life, so Nishio did not dare to chop him with a watermelon sword, unless he wanted to kill himself and then was eliminated directly. The smile at the corner of Nishio's mouth is no longer visible, because he has no mouth at all at the moment, but his heart is panicked.
After these 9 lives, he used the assassin for 8 times. He would not have side effects at all. It was because he wanted to end the battle sooner that caused this. Now that it's over, he can't perceive anything, and he can't even do that killer blow. Knowing that the opportunity was here, Kujo Ming quickly came to Nishio Yuda. At this moment, Nishio Yuda was waving the watermelon sword in his hand indiscriminately, trying to defend. 9 life is worthy of physical skills. The slashing watermelon sword did not hit him at once. The next moment 9 life punched Nishio Yuda's chin, and Nishio Yuda flew like a kite with a broken line. At the edge of the ring. Under the bright lights, the arena at the moment was stained with blood, and 9 life was walking towards Nishio Yuda one step at a time, and the battle was finally over. Unexpectedly, Nishio Yuda calmed down instead, and no longer wielded the watermelon sword indiscriminately. Everyone thought that Nishio Taro was gone, and the feeling that the watermelon sword was invincible in the hands of the world has passed.
To be honest, no one dares to underestimate it. Nishio Yuda, in terms of strength, they think it is not easy to avoid this watermelon sword. Chi Feng is quite interested in this Nishio Yuda. If the quirk is a watermelon sword, then the cut made by Nishio Yuda himself is great. If it is the quirk upgrade, it will be more difficult. Because Chi Feng wants to learn this ability, so that no one can avoid him, it's so cool. 9 lives slowly walked towards Nishio Yuda, spitting blood on the ground. I admit that you are very strong. If I only have 1 life, it will not be your opponent at all, but it is a pity that I have 9 lives.
After saying this, Nishio Taro didn't give Nishio Taro a chance, and he kicked it out and kicked at Nishio Taro's front door. Read more at hotmtlnovel.zi. Just when everyone thought that Nishio Yuda was defeated, Nishio Yuda, suddenly violent, turned a somersault in the air and jumped to the back of 9 life. The back of the watermelon sword in his hand was slapped on the neck of 9 life. 9 life felt like one. There was a sharp pain, and then he flew out in front of him and fell out of the ring inexplicably like this. Winner, Nishio Yuda. Okishen announced the result of the game, then looked at Lang Zigyu and asked, will you go to the next game or Nishio Yuda to continue? Lang Zigyu said directly, go, let Nishio Yuta rest. Then he stood up and helped Nishio Yuda down. The personnel with recovery system in the Imperial League's qualifying competition will quickly restore the quirk, so that the side effects will disappear quickly. So Yuda Nishio can still participate in the next game, but Lang Zigyu feels that it is unnecessary. Everyone felt that it was a bit dramatic. Originally, 9 life was bound to win, but the result was such a contrast. Perhaps 9 life knew that Yuda Nishio was at the end of the road, so he put down his guard and lost the game. Chi
Feng picked up the popcorn he bought before and ate it, and then drank a sip of Coke. It felt so cool. It was even better than watching a blockbuster in a movie theater. Sitting across from Chi Feng, Kurosawa Kazuki saw Chi Feng eating and drinking so indifferently, and felt a little uncomfortable. From the current point of view, the strength of Yuda Nishio is stronger than him. That watermelon sword is really invincible.
Hey, God's will. Kurosawa sighed and stopped asking for anything. If he loses, he loses. It may be difficult to get in the top 10. However, what surprised Ochiai was that the 5th sage Kurosawa Kazun would team up with Underworld. This is something he did not expect. Although the two of them usually have a little temper, they are all the 7 sages of Tokyo, so it is inevitable that they will do some dealing. The next game will be faster, 5 kings against 5 kings, and 5 kings against 7 sages. Several teams have been decided at once. The Bimu Ling weapon is an ink pen, which looks like a sharp sword on its back. Cliffdor is a foreigner, with golden hair draped over his shoulders and a big back. He looks very energetic. At this moment, he walked into the ring and his expression was still very plain. No one would think that Xinye's swordman is weak, but it can only be regarded as bad luck, and encounters an elemental quirk with a large attack range. However, players who win or lose during the qualifying competition are not allowed to leave the Underground Heroes venue without authorization. They can only leave after the final runoff is over. Chi Feng is not in a hurry to find Yi Yan trouble now. The next game, Pen Mu Ling, blocking the road from all directions, fighting, Clifford, Kenro Nomoto. It is also interesting to say that Nishio Yuta and Jujiaomei are both 4th sages, and then Lang Zigyu and Xinye swordsman are both 7th sages, and they seem to have been discussed. Ochiai Minato has been staring at Chi Feng not far away. At the Sea Exchange meeting, he suffered a few stabs from the Legend of the Night, and his memory is still fresh, but it is a pity that he cannot be divided into a group to fight. Clifty stood up. Chi Feng looked at this man who was only 4 or 5 meters away from him. He was a little excited. This battle is beautiful. Clifty is the #1 sage in Shibuya. Chi Feng has never seen him. Real people, I did see it this time. Therefore, Nishio Yuta and Langshi Kuching advanced to the next round. After the two took the stage, everyone's attention was focused on the two. This is the battle between the 2 first sages, and it must be very wonderful. His opponent, Bai Mu Ling, also stood up and stepped onto the ring. Chi Feng noticed that this Bai Mu Ling was also the first sage. He was dressed in a white and black Taoist robe, looking like a scholar with clean eyebrows. Chi Feng watched with gusto. It is not his turn yet, there are still a few groups ahead of him. The battle between these two people was much faster than that of Nishio Yuta. Shino swordsman is a swordsman. The quirk is perception. He can perceive anything within 5 meters, and then react quickly. The Yi Yan that Chi Feng focused on also ended the battle. Now he can be sure that this Yi Yan is the guy in the arson, but at this time he has already lost and is no longer eligible for the game. However, Lang Zigyu's quirk was cold and had a wide range of attacks. The Shino swordsman, who was known for relying on close sword skills, was obviously unable to match the opponent, so he was defeated. Chapter 161. We met again. Cliff smiled more, his white teeth dazzling. Chi Feng looked at Cliffdor's white teeth and immediately thought of Ida Tenya. Now Ida Tenya's teeth are like diamonds, right? You are still as handsome as always. Bai Muling smiled, and took the ink pen behind him, which was about the same length as the sword. Cliffdor is actually very reluctant to fight with Bai Mu Ling. The quirk of Bai Mu Ling is a bit abnormal. With that pen, you can draw some horrible things. Basically, you can draw anything you want, but the strength of the drawn things is related to personal strength. Pen Mu Ling has relied on this quirk to occupy the first sage for many years, and there are many people who know that he is great, and Clifford is one of them. Although the two have never fought, Clifty still has some drums in his heart. He became the first sage and it has only been about 2 years this year, and Pen Mu Ling has been there for at least 3 or 4 years, compared to Pen Mu Ling. He is considered a junior. It is rumored that your pen can draw everything, let me see. Clifford can only use it. His quirk is increased in strength and muscle stiffness will increase. Generally speaking, the quirk of the power system is in close combat, unrivaled. At this moment, he has launched the quirk. The original height of 1.9 meters quickly came to about 2 meters, the muscle lines showed a perfect trend, and the blue pupils revealed confidence. Naturally, Pen Mu Ling couldn't fight close to Clifford. He was not good at this, so he held the pen in the air and swiped it, and immediately a black and white human figure appeared in front of everyone. All Might. Everyone was surprised. Chi Feng opened his eyes even more. This wood spirit is so awesome, he actually used quirk to directly draw All Might to fight the opponent. Worthy of being a person who can draw everything. Chi Feng is really convinced. Now he knows that there are more people in the world than his quirk. The quirk of this pen and wood spirit has some bugs. But Chi Feng doesn't care. No matter how strong the quirk is in front of him, he has to bow his head. Seeing Bai Mu Ling drew a puppet All Might, Clifty's face looked a little ugly, and it was really targeted. He was from the Power Enhancement Department, but he directly drew All Might. Who can compare to Power? All Might. Bai Mu Ling smiled, drew a sofa, then sat on it, and drew an iron wall around it, revealing only a gap where you can see the outside world. It's too cheap, Kurosawa couldn't help blurting out. Even people like him who didn't want to offend others couldn't help but complain. This is the cheapest 7 sages he has ever seen, and the other party is still outstanding. Read more at hotmtlnovel.zi. Although All Might's body is not as good as before, it is still the strongest incarnation in everyone's hearts. Cliffdor didn't want to be affected by the fake All Might, so he directly attacked. First try to test this fake All Might. Clifford is already a punch, and the black and white All Might drawn by the Pen Wood Spirit controller himself is also a punch. Boom. After a muffled sound, Kridov found that the strength of this black and white All Might was not strong. It seemed to be weaker than him. It was relieved to think about it. After all, it was a dummy drawn by Pen Mu Ling. If a dummy is better than he is strong, so there is really no need to fight. Cliffdor started a stormy attack. The Black and White All Might was tired of parrying, and it seemed that it was not Cliffdor's opponent at all. The 7 sages and 5 kings on the scene obviously also expected this result, but at the beginning, the wood spirit. When they drew All Might, they were really surprised. After 50 rounds, the Black and White All Might was broken and unable to continue the fight. Cliffy stretched his waist out of breath and finally won. Bai Mu Ling sneered, separated Tai Chang, and drew 2 human figures again in the air. 2 Black and White All Might. Cliffdor's face turned ugly. He thought that after finishing this Black and White All Might, it would be the end. He didn't expect Pen Mu Ling to draw 2 more. It seems that he was careless. He should have knocked Pen Mu Ling down from the beginning. Otherwise things like Black and White All Might will emerge endlessly. The people watching were also speechless for a while, and most of them felt that Pen Mu Ling's quirk was too disgusting. After hitting one comes out again. Does this make people live?
Cliff learned to be smart this time, and he bypassed the 2 Black and White All Mights and went outside the iron wall constructed by Pen Mu Ling, and knocked the iron wall into the air with one fist.
The iron wall that was knocked down lost its function and turned into ink spilling on the ground. Pen Mu Ling didn't panic. He sat on the sofa and hooked his finger. The 2 Black and White All Might quickly rushed out, and Cliff fighting together. Pen Mu Ling once again built an iron wall, as stable as Mount Tai. This time it became Cliffy that he was a little tired of coping, but he didn't have the idea of giving up, because he knew that Pen Mu Ling's quirk would not last forever, and it was impossible to draw All Might all the time. No matter what quirk it was, there would be side effects. So far he has never seen a quirk without side effects.
As long as Pen Mu Ling's quirk has side effects and can no longer be used, then it is his Cliff win. Although he also has a vice quirk, it does not immediately work, so as long as he persists, he can win. Maybe Clifford doesn't know that Chi Feng's dual quirk has no side effects, and the quirk cannot be released after exhaustion. If you insist on side effects, it is exhaustion. Faced with 2 All Mights, although it is fake, it also brings pressure to Cliffdow. Fortunately, his muscles are relatively hard and he won't have too much pain after being hit, but he waits until he is relieved. Later, his muscles will be extremely sensitive.
Get out of here, Cliffdow yelled, and finally smashed a Black and White All Might with a punch, and became ink scattered on the ring, and the other Black and White All Might was almost dead. Bai Mu Ling removed the iron wall and then stood up from the sofa. The sofa became ink when he stood up. Bai Mu Ling took a long pen and slid it back and forth on the ink, drawing an All Might again in the air. It's just that this All Might is much bigger than the previous one, at least 3 meters tall. All Might himself is 2 meters tall, and now he is painted 3 meters, which is very oppressive. Cliff kicked another Black and White All Might into ink, only to find that Pen Mu Ling had made him a bigger All Might, this FCK.
There is no end. Bai Mu Ling did not stop, and once again drew a person, but this time the person drawn was neither All Might nor professional heroes, but most of the people here knew each other.
The 3rd Emperor of Tokyo, Yoshihara Hoshikai. That's right, Bimu Ling drew the 3rd Emperor Yoshihara Hoshikai in Tokyo. Yoshihara Hoshikai's quirk is a damage rebound. No matter what hits him, the hitting party will receive the same damage. However, Yoshihara Hoshikai's rebound has another one. This kind of meaning, that is ineffective damage. Some people might say that this person is not invincible anymore? No, it's not. Although Yoshihara Shinghai's quirk is also very abnormal, his own combat power is almost 0. He cannot beat the opponent, and the opponent should not want to beat him. However, the opponent attacked him and suffered more damage than himself. So he has always been invincible. Chapter 162 Quirk is a smelly foot. Seeing Bai Mu Ling drew Yoshihara Shinghai, Cliffy's face became more and more ugly. Today, he has seen the disgust of Miyazaki #1 saint. He could deal with any individual, but this guy is really disgusting. The power quirk is most afraid of this kind of rogue sending it, and that kind of elemental quirk. In short, a man is happy when he hits the flesh. Bai Mu Ling, you are considered to be a more difficult guy the first have seen. Cliffdoll suddenly laughed, but there was no smile in his tone. Bai Mu Ling also said, it's the same, you are the one I've seen more resistant. After being ridiculed, Cliffy rushed over, but was blocked by the 3-meter-high All Might, and punched. The muscles of Clifford's fists suddenly burst, and his strength doubled, and he hit the Black and White All Might punch. At this moment, the Yoshihara Shinghai painted by Bai Mu Ling suddenly appeared in K in front of this punch of Li Fuduo. Not good, Cliffy's heart trembled, but it was too late to stop his strength. This punch had already hit the body of the fake Yoshihara Shinghai, and then he felt the feeling of being hit by the train. The whole person was instantly flew out of the ring. Winner, Pen Mu Ling. Da Mu Xian announced the result of the game, and then asked Pen Mu Ling and Bafong for their opinions on who will be in the next game. Pen Mu Ling needs a rest, so the opportunity was given to Bafong to block the way, and the next battle is Bafong block the way against Keno Honkoro. Bafong is a young man with an inch head, with various medals wrapped around his hands and neck, and on his legs and stomach. It looks a little bit ridiculous, but such a person is the 2nd sage in Kyoto, ranking 1 below King Chi. Bit. Nomoto Kenro is a middle-aged man who handles swords. His hair is gray and looks nothing unusual, but he is the third sage of Kanagawa. The battle between the two is quite exciting, but Kenro Nomoto is not an opponent of Bafong blocking the road. The name of the person blocking the Bafong road is exactly the same as Quirk. No matter where you are or where you want to attack, you will be blocked. But the obstacles that block each other are one by one. Those iron spikes and iron fences cover the entire ring, making Nomoto Jianru's sword chi that he slashes cannot be broken at all. Even if it breaks the quirk of all directions, there will be a steady stream of quirks. Surrounded him, and finally blocked all the action space of Nomoto Kenro, and the game ended. This time Tiki Ling and Nomoto Kenro advanced. The time gradually came to noon. Everyone left the venue to eat at the first Beijing hotel, and then prepared for the afternoon game. Mishima Feng Yinzi came to Chi Feng, Legend of the Dark Knight, the afternoon is your end. Read more at hotmtlnovel.zi. In the afternoon game, their group was playing against Underworld, so Mishima Kaze didn't forget to discuss his opponent Underworld who was about to be beaten wildly by him. Where did the wild dog come? Get lousy off. Chi Feng didn't even look at Mishima Wind, and walked to the restaurant with a curse. Damn, you haven't been arrogant for a few hours. Wait for lousy. Mishima Kaze roared behind Chi Feng. Niwa Kairan came over and patted Mishima Kaze on the shoulder and said, what is so angry with him? In the afternoon, when he cries, I will make him unable to even call out for mercy. Yes, then there will be brother Lao Heron. Mishima Feng felt a little more comfortable in his heart, and walked into the restaurant with Niwa Heron. During the meal, Kurosawa seemed to have no appetite. Chi Feng turned his head and asked, what's wrong with Kurosawa? The food is not your appetite. No, Kurosawa sighed. We are about to face the second and third sages. We have no chance of winning at all. Chi Feng was taken aback. It turned out that Kurosawa was thinking about this. He laughed and said, don't worry about the two small trash fish. I can solve it by myself, don't worry. Hearing Chi Feng's words, Kurosawa couldn't eat it anymore. He only realized that Chi Feng was too aggressive, and he even thought about whether it was a wise decision to find Chi Feng to form a team. However, he didn't regret taking medicine, and he couldn't find a team with similar strength in Kurosawa Yilong. Although the 7 sages who were farther away knew the name, he really knew less. Chi Feng didn't care what he wanted to eat. There was no difficulty that could stop him, just those two guys. Chi Feng felt that he might win even if they were together. The first person who came to the stage was Wu Wanglin. This person's name did not match his hair at all. Some people would think that even if this person is not black hair, he should have blue hair. But when Wu Wanglin stepped onto the ring, that red hair is particularly dazzling. The opponent Qian Tianjian is relatively ordinary, but the name is a bit like him. Qian Tianjian looks short-sighted, and does not look like a good person. At the beginning of the afternoon game, Oki walked out with a radiant face, and he picked up the microphone in the designated place and said, the morning game is very exciting, so let's continue the afternoon game. The first game, Tai Zuolong, No Wang Lan, fight, Lord Buddha, Qian Tianjian. However, seeing Chi Feng's ranking on the screen is relieved, the fifth holy, even if he wins, no one will be convinced. Qianda Jian doesn't know what Wu Wanlin's quirk is, but looking at this red hair, he knows that it's not easy to mess with. The most important point is Wu Wanglin is the third sage in Kyoto, while he is the fifth sage in Hokkaido, rankings. Seeing Kurosawa Kazuki still loses his appetite, his brow furrows even worse. Chi Feng doesn't know what to say. He has already said that he can beat the two guys, but Kurosawa Kazuki doesn't believe him. What can be done? Cliffdor had no small belly chicken intestines, and hated Bai Mu Ling, and even had a glass of wine with Bai Mu Ling. Chi Wang sat next to Chi Feng as always. He took a sip of the orange juice and smiled. Everything can happen in the ring. It's better to start something. After the two took the stage, the game was announced. Does this person's quirk have bad feet? 5 kings in the audience asked in surprise, while covering his nose with his hands. Chi Feng is also happy. This Qian Tianjian is really cheap enough. This is a real cow who takes off his shoes on the ring. Chi Feng is suspicious. How did this guy become the 7 saints? Can anyone convince him? Qianda Jian rubbed his hands, and suddenly took off his shoes. An odor instantly filled the ring and spread to the outside of the ring. Kurosawa smiled reluctantly, picked up the chopsticks and continued to eat, but not much. Chi Feng and Kurosawa Yilong went back to the room to rest for an hour after eating, and Kurosawa Yilong was a little bit difficult during this hour. He had been thinking about how to play against Niwa Kairan and Mishima Kaze, but it was only after thinking about it for a long time. Sai, do your best. Let's make a move. Wu Wanglin said calmly, with a strange air in his eyes. The lunch ended soon. Compared with yesterday's dinner, some people kept a low profile. However, Nishio Taro and Tiki Ling were welcomed by some people. The strong are all attracting attention everywhere. Chapter 163 The terrifying Buddha. Wu Wanglin frowned. His handsome face frowned and his brows became more handsome, but none of the 7 sacred and 5 kings present admired him, but some old women in the audience thought this young man was very attractive. Qian Tian's foot odor has become more and more intense. Qian Tian also tried to control the smell of the ring within the scope of the ring, otherwise the smell of Oki might be eliminated directly. Wu Wanglin was a little unbearable. Seeing that Qian Tian didn't take the next step, he directly waved his hands, and the blood in the pores of his hands immediately penetrated, and it instantly ran to the ground. Chi Feng touched his chin. He remembered that Bradkin, the head teacher of Heroes' Class B, was similar to this kind of quirk, which seemed to be called F-King blood and was able to control the blood. However, Chi Feng doesn't think Wu Wanglan's quirk is the same as Bradkin, but it may be the same.
The blood flowed like a fountain, and instantly filled the entire arena, but even if there was not a drip outside the ring, Qian Tian's feet were also covered with blood, and he did not dare to act rashly.
He is such a weak body that can't stand the toss. Originally, he participated in the qualifying contest with a fluke mentality, because he knew that it would be impossible for him to enter the top 10 with his own quirk. If he didn't know the #1 Saint Buddha in Tokyo, it is estimated that no one will team up with him. But at this moment, Qian Tianjian must also give up, and let out a breath. There was a stench in this breath that was even more stinky than the odor of feet, and it instantly struck Wu Wanglan.
A wall of blood appeared, blocking the breath, but there was still some smell infiltrating in, causing Wu Wanglan to vomit immediately. The smell was simply too stinky.
Qian Tian chuckled. It seems to be effective. His quirk is smell enhancement. As long as the smell of his body can be doubled, his foot odor can make the odor of his feet become more stinky. Bad breath just can make bad breath worse. In short, it is all kinds of smells, or all kinds of incense. Wu Wanglan had just vomited. A strange smell hit again, and then he vomited again. Qian Tianjian was changing the law, disgusting Wu Wanglan. As long as Wu Wanglan couldn't stand it, he would naturally abstain, and then he would win.
Foot odor is mixed with bad breath, underarm odor, body odor, and various body odors, sweeping Wu Wanglan's olfactory nerves. Wu Wanglan feels that he is about to collapse. He is such a modest gentleman, he will encounter this disgusting. The opponent was simply caught off guard. But he would not be defeated by this disgusting guy. Wu Wanglan suddenly covered his nose and mouth with blood, and the stench was instantly reduced by 80%. Disgusting guy, goodbye. Wu Wanglan raised his hand and shot out 5 bloody afterimages, 4 of which penetrated Qian Tian's left hand, right hand, left foot and right foot, and the other hit Qian Tian's chest.
But it did not penetrate, but knocked him out and fell out of the ring. Read more at hotmtlnovel.zi. The staff walked out wearing chemical protective clothing, and immediately carried Qian Tianjian down. It was too stinky. This guy would affect the spectator here. Ahem. Winner, no King Blue. Oki Xian said embarrassingly. He was also stinky. To tell the truth, underground heroes like Qian Jian are indeed not seen by people.
Naturally, the next step was the appearance of Buddha. Wu Wanglan had no intention of stepping down. The battle became a battle for Buddha against Wu Wanglan.
Chi Feng only noticed this Buddha at this time, wearing a white robe to cover all his appearance. It was the same when eating before. No one knows what the white robe looks like. At this moment, Lord Buddha stepped onto the ring and took off the white robe, revealing his original face. There are golden Buddhist beads hanging around his neck, Buddhist strings on his hands, and large earlobes, which look a bit like a Buddha.
You'd better go down by yourself, I don't like to do it. Foy said lightly, his tone was like no waves in the ancient well.
Wu Wanglan sneered, since I'm here, I won't give up the game unless you beat me. Then what you mean is that there is no more to talk about. Foy's tone began to change. Yes, nothing to talk about. Wu Wanglan raised his hand and waved a dozen blood beads, and hit the Buddha. No matter what, the Buddha's strength is definitely stronger than him, otherwise the position of the first holy is not so easy to sit. Everyone can only hear the sound of shoo, which means that the speed of the blood beads is very fast.
Puff. Wu Wanglan spouted a mouthful of blood, and the whole person's momentum instantly wilted. The Buddha grabbed Wu Wanglan's hair and struck dozens of punches again. Wu Wanglan was already a little confused at this moment. Who? But Wu Wanglan was still wrong. The blood enveloping Lord Buddha burst out instantly, and Lord Buddha rushed towards him like a black shadow. When Wu Wanglan wanted to stop it, it was too late, and Lord Buddha's punch was already hit on his stomach. At this moment, Buddha's eyes are emitting a weird red light, and the dark body is even more weird. Those who have yelled with Buddha at the scene will understand that Buddha doesn't really like to do it, but he didn't do it. Severity. This
is not over yet. Wu Wanglan set off a blood wave. There are tens of thousands of blood beads in the blood wave, and lasses towards the enveloped Buddha. When Da Muxian announced the victory of Lord Buddha, the medical staff had directly started to rescue the ring, and the staff were responsible for cleaning the blood on the ring. Wu Wanglan didn't dare to have any reservations. The blood on his body spread wildly, and the whole ring was covered with blood for a while, and then the blood wrapped the Buddha inside. Hiochi Minato is an alloy heroes. The hardness of his body can be said to be very strong. Most people really don't want to hurt him, but he is only a child in front of Buddha. He knows the horror of Buddha and how dark skin is. Hard. Chi Feng's face is a bit unsightly. This Buddha's strength is beyond his imagination. This guy is even more difficult than the previous Pen Mulling. Chi Feng is even thinking about whether he can get in the top 3. Ochiai Minato looked at Buddha on the ring covered in blood with a sense of horror in his heart. It was not Wu Wanglan's strength that he was frightened, but Buddha. After the last punch, Lord Buddha let go of Wu Wanglan. After 10 seconds, he recovered to his original state, and then bowed to the unconscious Wu Wanglin, Sin. Winner, Lord Buddha. After nearly a minute of attack, Wu Wanglin is also a little weak. Even if Lord Buddha is dead at this moment, he will not regret it. If he doesn't show his strength against such an opponent, he will probably end badly. Stop! Da Muxian shouted directly, and if he continued to fight like this, people would die. Wu Wanglin's face changed. He had heard that Buddha was very strong, and he also knew that the first sage called Buddha did not believe in Buddha at all, but rather hated Buddha very much, but his strength was very strong. Now Wu Wanglin is talented. I know, this Buddha is indeed the same as the rumors.
Sure enough, Foy's cold face changed in an instant, and his body became as black as ink at this moment, like a black gold stone. The dozen or so blood beads of Wu Wanglin hit the black body of Buddha without any reaction. Chapter 164 Mishima K's versus Kurosawa One Wave. The next is Miyazaki's fourth Saint Seirin versus Buddha. As soon as Tai Zuolong entered the ring, he immediately conceded. Even Wu Wanglin was not an opponent of Lord Buddha. He was severely injured. He, a fourth sage, was not enough for Lord Buddha to fight 2 punches. It was terrible and decisively abstained. Tai Zuolong's abstention is very normal in everyone's minds, because Buddha's strength is too strong. After Quirk is activated, there are completely 2 people. In addition to the first and second sages, there may be a battle. The rest of the sages and kings going up is all looking for death.
Then Qian Tianjian and Buddha advanced. Chi Feng is speechless even thinking about it. This Qian Tianjian, such a rubbish guy, is actually in a group with a strong person like Buddha. Is there a special relationship between these 2 guys? However, Chi Feng is too lazy to guess about this kind of thing. He is now considering how to deal with those difficult guys. In fact, it is enough to become the 3rd group. There is no need to enter the 1st group.
Moreover, Chi Feng now knows that he wants to be the 1st group basically impossible.
Next game, Bai Shui, Lan Qi, Battle, Sea Bear, Bai Rigong. When Chi Feng heard of Bai Shui's enthusiasm, the Sea Bear and Bai Rigong were a bit unlucky. Bai Shui's strength Chi Feng is very clear. His strength will never be lower than that of the 3 saints. Even the Poison King is temporarily under Bai Shui's quirk. Lost the ability to move, let alone these 2 guys who didn't even reach the first 3 sages. The first player to play was not Bai Shui, but the woman named Lan Qi. Chi Feng discovered that this woman named Lan Qi was the 2nd holy person in Hokkaido, which was several rankings higher than Bai Shui. And Lan Qi has a sweet look, and she wears it very revealingly. The 2 slender thighs are exposed, which makes people feel the kind at first glance. The Sea Bear played first. He knew that his opponent was not Lan Qi's opponent, but he also wanted to fight. The most important thing was that Lan Qi was very beautiful. If he could take advantage of the battle, it would be worth losing. The game began after the 2 sides took the stage.
Although Lan Qi is sweet, she has no expression on her face and is very cold. The Sea Bear chuckled, and suddenly his body began to change. After 10 seconds, he became a giant gray bear over 3 meters high, and he was conscious.
Lan Qi, who is 7 meters tall, looks like a baby in front of a sea bear that is more than 3 meters high. It seems to outsiders that Lan Qi belongs to the kind of humiliated role. But the next moment everyone would not think that way. Lan Qi lifted her leg and kicked it towards the sea bear. A crescent-shaped blue light wave kicked out of her foot and hit the sea bear directly. Body. Read more at hotmtlnovel.zi. The sea bear was directly kicked off the ring by this kick like plastic, and a deep bloodstain oozes out of his body, and he was defeated like this.
Winner, Lan Qi. The sea bear returned to its original state and was holding his wound in pain. He didn't expect that he would not even be able to catch any of Lan Qi's moves. Is there such a big gap?
After the sea bear was carried away, it was Bai Rigong's turn to play. His ranking was lower than that of the sea bear, but he did not admit defeat. It was considered relatively spineless, however, it is useless to have bones. Although Bai Rigong is a kind of comparison, hard steel, but still can't hold Lan Qi's feet. So Bai Shui and Lan Qi advanced. The next game, The Legend of the Night, Kurosawa Kazun, Battle, Niwa Kirin, Mishima K's.
I'm finally here. Chi Feng stood up. He sat here and watched these people's games. His hands were itchy for a long time. He waited for a day to finally approach dusk before it was his turn. Although the game would last until midnight, he didn't want to procrastinate anymore. Kurosawa sighed, the one who should have come will come. Since I chose this way, there is no reason to regret it. The luck of the sea bear and Bai Rigang is also very bad. They met Lan Qi, such a powerful second holy, so it's better to look at the opening point.
Niwa's Siren and Mishima K's are the most excited now, and they are finally at their home court. They can abuse the legend of the Dark Knight. They have waited for this moment for too long, and they feel like they live like years. After Heizhao Yilong and Chi Feng came to the waiting zone, Haizawa looked at Chi Feng and said, "My ranking is higher than you. I will go ahead." Chi Feng said nonchalantly, "It's okay, just go and play. Then I will clean up these 2 guys. If you are not an opponent, don't be aggressive, just abstain." Kurosawa smiled and didn't speak. It was this time that the Legend of the Night was still joking. How great was this experience? Kei's Mishima is the third sage, one level lower than Niwa. He chose to take the stage first. Whether it's Kurosawa Ichiban or the Legend of the Night against him, he can't be his opponent. When Mishima Kei's and Kurosawa Yiren came to power, the game began.
As the Dark Knight tails a silly thing, let you come up first. Mishima Kei's looked at Kurosawa sarcastically, and now he has no scruples.
Kurosawa said blankly. I know that I am not your opponent, but I won't give up in the first place. Mishima Feng snorted coldly. Since you are teaming up with the Legend of the Night, you must not be a good bird. Lousy even took care of you. After saying this, Mishima Kei's pulled out the 2 daggers from his waist, and hit Kurosawa with 2 swords. Then everyone could feel that there were 2 winds on the arena towards Kurosawa. The waves hit. Chi Feng didn't know what the quirk of Kurosawa Yilong was, but he asked before that Kurosawa Yilong said it was a weapon, but he didn't know the specific weapon. At this moment, Kurosawa Yiren looked stern, and stretched out his right hand. Suddenly, a black ruler stretched out from the palm of his hand, and then slashed horizontally towards the 2 winds, and the dark blade appeared, colliding with Mishima Kei's attack, together. The explosion sounded. Kurosawa waved his throat sweetly, but he did not vomit blood. After forcibly stabilizing the blood flowed back automatically. Mishima Kei's struck 2 attacks, and he only cleaved 1, so he was injured very much, normal.
Kurosawa suddenly realized that he seemed to have the power to fight, and this third saint was not as powerful as he had imagined. Mishima Kei's was stunned for a moment. He didn't know Kurosawa's quirk. Only now did he realize that it was a weapon, and it actually blocked his attack. It seems that the strength of the 7 sages of Tokyo is still good, but he will lose.
Yes, your strength should be much stronger than that of the Dark Knight legend, but I just showed my general strength, and you should have already shown 80% strength, right? Mishima Kei's chuckled. Suddenly combine the 2 daggers in your hand into one. Kurosawa Kazuki was a little surprised. The strength he just used was 70%. If that's the case, if he splits 2 attacks, then even Mishima Kei's don't want him to be injured, so it looks like this Mishima Kei's the strength is also average. I really don't know how to sit in the position of the third holy. Chapter 165 Kurosawa Kazun didn't want to be passive this time. He wanted to preemptively. He took a step forward. The black ruler in his hand quickly grew to a length of 1.5 meters.
Then he gathered his strength and chopped it down from the air. 2 meters high, heading towards Mishima Kei's with a terrifying coercion. Mishima Kei's was shocked. Does Kurosawa Kazuki want to die and break the net?
At this moment, he couldn't help but think about it. The reason why he was called Mishima Kei's was that he had 3 daggers, 2 on his waist, and 1 on his back. At this moment, Mishima Kei's pulled out the dagger behind him and merged with the 2 before. When the 3 were united together, a dazzling light suddenly burst out. Under this light, Mishima Kei's sneered, and directly stabs forward with a dagger. The surrounding air seemed to be emptied by the stab, and then a terrifying shock struck, and Kurosawa's expression changed. After hitting him, he knew that his strength was not Mishima Kei's opponent.
The opponent's thorn completely locks the escape route around him. If you want to escape, you can only escape by jumping from the ring behind, otherwise you will receive the greatest impact, and the opponent's attack is better than your own. Chiming is much stronger.
Kurosawa sighed. He didn't expect to lose so simply. He thought he could still compete with the other party. Who knew that Mishima Kei's killer made him lose? Brother Dark Knight, don't even think about it. Even he is not Mishima Kei's opponent. Brother Dark Knight goes up to be abused. The top 10 dreams are really dreams. At the moment when Kurosawa Yilong finished sighing, the black sacred light that he smashed out also disintegrated under the blow of Mishima Kei's. Kurosawa Yilong jumped off the ring without hesitation, which meant he had surrendered. Winner, Mishima Kei's. Most of the people present felt that the Legend of the Night would directly surrender. Mishima Kei's may hurt the Legend of the Night with a random blow. Moreover, the Legend of the Night was guilty of Niwa Kairen and Mishima Kei's, so the only way to go to the ring is to be beaten. It's humiliating for yourself. Only Mansion and Ochiai don't think otherwise, especially Mansion. He knows that the power of Underworld Legend is very strong, and it is still a double quirk, but the other quirk seems to be electromagnetic. He is not very clear about the specifics, but it is very strong, is a rival. Damu Xian looked at Chi Feng and asked, The Legend of the Night, are you going to fight or abstain? Chi Feng smiled and stood up and waved his hand. Damuxian thought that Chi Feng would abstain. He just wanted to announce that Niwa Kairen and Mishima Kei's were promoted. As a result, he heard Chi Feng say, It is impossible to abstain from voting. Impossible. Damuxian opened his mouth and looked at Chi Feng with some embarrassment. He almost said it, but since Underworld is looking for death, he will not stop him. From another point, it can demonstrate the courage of Underworld. But it's the bravery of a reckless man. Mishima Kei's breathed a sigh of relief. Fortunately, the Legend of Night did not abstain, otherwise he would not be able to abuse him properly. It seems that the Legend of Night not only has an older mouth, but also has some problems with his brain. Read more at hotmtlnovel.zi. The 2 Kurosawa who ranked in the top of the Legend of the Night lost in a wave. This Legend of the Night dared to fight him, isn't it stupid, or is his strength exploding? Some of the 7 sages and 5 kings shook their heads. The Legend of the Night is looking for death. Obviously and Mishima Feng had a grudge, they even went on stage to fight. I really don't know what they think. Bai Shui looked at Chi Feng indifferently, feeling in her heart. Although she knew that Chi Feng's strength could not beat Mishima Wind, she felt that Chi Feng was a little mysterious. This kind of mystery has existed in the biochemical drug field. The purple thing given to her can quickly restore her quirk and weak body. Since then, she has felt that Chi Feng is mysterious. Lan Chi looked at Chi Feng with a little disdain. This kind of guy who wrapped herself so tightly looked shameless at first glance. His strength must be inferior to the end. The 7th and 3rd sacred fights are really stupid enough, better than that. The bear is still stupid. Chi Feng didn't care about everyone's gaze, and floated directly on the ring. Some people who didn't know the quirk of the Legend of the Night were also amazed at this moment. Being able to fly shows that the quirk should be good, but unfortunately there's only the 7th holy. Mishima Feng naturally investigated Chi Feng's quirk. At the moment Chi Feng flew to the ring, he did not show a surprised look, his eyes were full of sarcasm. The Legend of the Night, I didn't expect you to really dare to come to the stage. Didn't you see your teammates? Is it embarrassing? Kurosawa's face turned black. He thought that Chi Feng would abstain when he was defeated. He didn't expect that he would actually be in the ring. He would not listen to what Chi Feng said before. If one person can kill two, then it's all sleep talk. Now being ridiculed by Mishima Case, Kurosawa vowed to increase his strength and avenge him again at this time next year. Chi Feng looked at Mishima Case like a fool, and said with a sneer, Mishima Case, do you know how much gold is in the heroes of Shibuya Underground? After listening to Mishima Wind, he was taken aback, then burst into laughter, pointed his finger at Chi Feng and smiled. You mean, you, the 7th saint, still have gold content? Chi Feng shook his head. He didn't want to talk to this guy anymore. He took off the long sword behind his back and stared at Mishima Case and said, fight against me, it usually doesn't end well. After saying this sentence, Chi Feng directly slashed out, and the strong air pressure appeared instantaneously, slashing towards Mishima Wind with a pale blade wave. Jumping beam clown. The sarcasm on Mishima Case's face was undoubtedly revealed, but before he could finish a sentence, he felt a powerful oppressive force. He was shocked and immediately pulled out 2 daggers. The first wave is used to block that sword wave. Puff. Mishima Feng flew out directly, hitting the fiber net on the edge of the ring a dozen meters away. A mouthful of blood spurted out, and then fell to the ground with a look of shock in his eyes. Not only was Mishima Case shocked, everyone on the scene was shocked, especially Kurosawa Kazuki. As a teammate of Chi Feng, he was the most unimaginable to see this scene, which he never dreamed of. How could the strength of Underworld Legend be so strong? This is the only thought of Kurosawa Kazuki. After he was shocked, a flame of pride suddenly ignited in his heart. Brother Kurosawa is not a lie. He really has this strength. If anyone here is not shocked, it is Barbarian Mountain, and only he knows the strength of the Legend of the Night. Wang Qi stroked his chin. This kid is okay, it's hidden deep enough. Bai Shui also chuckled. No wonder he dared to go to the biochemical poison field, that's how it is. The other sages in Shibuya area have long been dumbfounded. This 7th sage is just a rising star. It only became the 7th sage not long ago, and it is understood from the battle that the battle with the trident of Shushin is very fierce. No, it seems to be much better than the opponent. But now with just a single sword, the 3rd holy sage in Hokkaido vomits blood. Is this strength the 1st holy?
Everyone knows that the wind of Mishima was careless, so he was vomited by the sword of the Legend of the Night, but it can also be reflected that the strength of the Legend of the Night is indeed very strong, and it is not as simple as the 7th saint. Chapter 166 This is impossible. Niwa Kairan looked at Mishima Case lying on the ground in a daze, with mixed flavors in his heart, and most of them were shocked. This Dark Knight legend, which they thought could be needed at will, turned into a giant dragon. This is too far away. He couldn't let go of it when he got older. Although he is sure to win the Night Legend, the fluctuations in his heart are too great now, and some are difficult to calm down, which may affect the game. Mishima Feng stood up with his hands propped up, wiped the bloodline at the corner of his mouth, and watched Chi Feng's eyes full of jealousy. The opponent's sword came quickly, he didn't have the time to react. He hurriedly only took out 60% of the strength to resist, but he was still injured. However, the speed of the sword is very fast, but it may have been brewing for a long time. Just want to attack him, so it is likely to have taken out 80% of the strength. But even so, Mishima Case would not treat Chi Feng as rubbish. If he doesn't do his best, he may lose miserably. Chi Feng patted the blade, looked at Mishima with a sense of interest and asked, how is it? My sword tastes good, right? Mishima Wind took a breath and pulled out the dagger behind him. Then the 3 daggers were combined into one. Then he stared at Chi Feng and said, Night Legend, I will let you know that the attack on me just now was a wrong decision. Chi Feng said with disdain. Sneak attack. I don't bother to attack you. I just used a small amount of power with the sword. Although it was relatively hasty, it was in my expectation that I could hurt you. When the Twisted Shark and Chi Feng were fighting, the strength of Twisted Shark was already close to the 3rd saint. At that time, the strength of Chi Feng was much worse than it is now. So now Chi Feng wants to win against Mishima Wind. It doesn't take much effort at all. Mishima Feng would not believe Chi Feng's words at all. In his thoughts, Dark Knight Legend definitely showed at least 70% of the strength. The reason for saying these words is to disturb his state of mind.
I'm not going to fight with you. Your mouth is already powerful, but lousy is the third holy. It is inevitable to crush you. Mishima Kaze shot a sharp light from his eyes, holding a dagger with his right hand. The front stabbed suddenly. This stab is stronger than the previous stab when he fought Kurosawa. Under this thorn, the surrounding air was all biased towards the Mishima wind. The wind seemed to be formed at this moment. In that dazzling light, it rushed towards Chi Feng like a bamboo. Kurosawa Kazuo's heart tightened. Mishima Kaze's thorn was stronger than when he was in the fight. Maybe the Dark Knight brothers really pushed Mishima Kaze into a hurry. He should have used 90% of his strength. Such an attack. Down, it is easy to kill people. Red Eye is killed. Damyu Xian glanced at Mishima Kaze, then turned his gaze to Chi Feng. This Dark Knight legend shocked him so much. The seventh sage actually hides such a strong strength. If it is cultivated and developed in the future, absolutely can create great achievements for the Emperor League.
Some people on the scene no longer believed that the legend of the knight could block Mishima Kaze's blow, and the third saint took out a full blow, which was no joke. But Chi Feng didn't panic at all, even with a trace of disdain in his eyes. He slowly raised the long sword with his right hand. The air was compressed on the sword and compressed again. Chi Feng didn't add any other means, so he slashed again. Read more at hotmtlnovel.zi. The white horse was cut by a long sword, and the surrounding air was like a spring under the pressure of a jack, but when the jack was lifted, the spring suddenly popped out. At this moment, the wind direction of Mishima wind disintegrated instantly, and all the wind directions were on Chi Feng's side, wrapped in compressed air. When this training hit, it collided with the thorny rays of Mishima wind. Together.
Boom. The ring split directly under this attack, and the thorny light of Mishima wind had long disappeared without a trace. The entire ring was all practiced by Chi Feng. It's impossible. Mishima Kaze screamed. The shock in his heart could not be added. The white pike crossed Mishima Kaze's left hand, and his left hand was directly turned into slag under this pike. Even the bones were compressed into powder by the air. I admit. Before Mishima Kaze confessed, Chi Feng blocked his mouth with air manipulation. At this moment, Mishima Kaze couldn't say a word. Hanging the sword behind his back, Chi Feng raised his hand and sucked Mishima Kaze over and grabbed his neck. Ooh, Mishima Kaze. A look of horror in his eyes. He now knows it. The legend of the night was not a sneak attack on him just now, it was really a random sword. Stabbed by the wind that he was proud of, the attack of the legend of the night directly disintegrated the last bit of dignity and confidence in his heart. Chi Feng pinched Mishima Kaze's neck, and asked with a sneer, who said that he would take care of me during the game. Mishima Kaze was unable to speak, and the mood in his heart was very complicated. He wanted to find a hole in the ground now. Chi Feng raised his hand and slapped Mishima Kaze on the face twice. I'm not convinced? All of you here are dumbfounded. If Chi Feng might have been a sneak attack before, then it is now the real strength. Even Buddha looked at Chi Feng more. Mishima Kaze's panic in his heart gradually turned into anger. Under the premise of winning him, the legend of the night made him unable to say the word surrender, and he also lost a hand. Is he still not satisfied? Chi Feng didn't care about other people's thoughts, and kept slapping on Mishima Kaze's face. Who made this guy so arrogant? People don't offend me. I don't offend people, but the Mishima Kaze is going to provoke him, and it's so arrogant to line up to get an accommodation card. It really deserves it.
Hey Kobe sat on the VIP table, staring at Chi Feng at the moment. He could feel the strength of this Dark Knight legend.
In the end, Mishima Kaze left tears of regret. Chi Feng also received 200 salvation points at this time, which can be said to be a big deal. Mishima Kaze was thrown directly out of the ring by Chi Feng. Niwa Kiran immediately caught Mishima Kaze and handed it to the medical staff. Winner, the legend of the night. Niwa Heron jumped and landed on the ring. His expression was very stern, but he didn't mean to admit defeat. Just kidding, how could his dignified second saint be frightened by this trick? Your methods are cruel. Mishima Kaze obviously gave up. You still humiliated him so aggressively? Niwa Kiran's aura began to rise, and suddenly a lot of water flowed from his body, instantly covering the entire ring. The water released by the Niwa Siren can no longer be stored 10 meters away from Chi Feng. Chi Feng knows that the Niwa Siren's quirk should be related to water, but it is impossible to get close to him. Seeing that the quirk he released could not get close to the legend of the night, Niwa Siren was not surprised. This was in his expectation, but he did not intend to defeat the legend of the night by such a means. I think my methods are okay. Anyone who provokes me will not end well, and so will you. Chi Feng smiled, but didn't mean to draw a sword. Chapter 167 Evaporation. Kurosawa looked excitedly at Chi Feng in the ring. He could win this match, not far from the top 10. As long as he enters the top 10, he will be appreciated by the Imperial League. They have hope. However, this Niwa Seaman is the second sage of Kanagawa. Even if the legend of the night is powerful, it is impossible to win easily, and there may be danger. All this is unknown. Let me teach you a madman. Niyu Heron sneered, The water on the ground lifted him high, and there was water everywhere on the thousands of square meters arena. This water is actually seawater, and the quirk of the Niwa sea people is the power of the sea, which can release the seawater by itself, and then manipulate the seawater to attack the opponent. Suddenly a sea elemental soldier appeared on the sea. They were holding harpoons, tridents, hammers, and all kinds. There were hundreds of these sea elemental soldiers, densely surrounding Chi Feng. Chi Feng felt a little familiar, and suddenly he remembered, didn't Hamaguchi fight him in this way? Hamaguchi is a soil quirk, and then he uses the soil to create unearthed people to fight him. To deal with Niwa Marines, as long as Niwa Marines are cleaned up, these marine elemental soldiers will disintegrate on their own, but obviously the Niwa Marines are not a junk like Hamaguchi, so Chi Feng did not care. Under the command of the Niwa seamen, the sea element soldiers quickly killed Chi Feng. Chi Feng walked into the cloak with one hand. He took out a string of magnets. The magnets do not necessarily have to rely on Thor's return to manipulate them. Air manipulation can also control a magnet, making it into any shape.
Under Chi Feng's command, the magnet turned into a sword, and an axe. Various weapon changes, like those sea elemental soldiers, those close to Chi Feng. The weapon turned into a magnet quickly defeated.
Niwa Heron was not in a hurry. His sea element soldiers continued to come back. As long as they lost one, they would change back again. At this moment, the two entered a tug of war. Chi Feng simply sat on the ground, manipulating the magnet to fight easily with one hand. The fighting between the two lasted for more than 10 minutes, and everyone was a little impatient. A battle would not take so long. If it was prolonged like this, it was about to eat dinner. Chi Feng is restoring his strength in the previous battle. Don't look at him easily defeating Mishima K's. In fact, Mishima K's final blow was also very strong. If it weren't for Chi Feng's quirk, it would have been good. Win so easily. It's enough to recover the quirk in 10 minutes. Chi Feng stood up and took the magnet back. Niwa Siren immediately noticed, and immediately sneered. Why, I'm going to be true, or just give up and lose strength. From the point of view of Niwa Seaman, the legend of the knight manipulating stones into various weapons to fight with his sea elemental soldiers is actually a waste of power. It takes more than 10 minutes to fight with his sea elemental soldiers. It's normal to consume power quickly. Read more at hotmtlnovel.zi. Even if his current quirk power has been consumed a little, he is still willing to be able to greatly reduce the strength of the legend of the knight.
However, Chi Feng replied with just a punch. With this punch, the surrounding sea water began to shake. Chi Feng's punch was swayed by a layer of ripples, and the sea water that was more than 10 meters wide was instantly separated by the punch, and then went directly to it. Niwa Chiron rushed away. Niyu Heron was shocked, and with a wave of his hands, the denser and tighter sea water blocked up, forming a shield from side to side.
Bang! Chi Feng's punch was blocked. Niwa Heron just wanted to laugh, but saw a punch hit again. After this punch, there was another punch. Chi Feng hit 8 punches, and it was a punch is better than a punch. Niwa Heron no longer smiled, and used his quirk to block Chi Feng's attack. At this moment, he was also secretly brewing a big move, wanting a move to bring the legend of the knight to the ring. But he underestimated Chi Feng's strength. These 8 punches came. The first 4 punches were blocked by the sea shield. The next 4 punches directly hit Niwa Chiron's body. Just when the Niwa Chiron was about to vomit blood, the big trick brewing was finally done, and at this moment, watching Chi Feng roared ferociously. Death to Lousy.
Wan Hai swallowed. The sea water instantly became violent. At a location invisible to Chi Feng's naked eyes, the color of the sea water suddenly turned dark blue, and the swallowing power was also madly spreading, sweeping towards Chi Feng in all directions.
Originally, the 10 meters around Chi Feng were not invaded by seawater, but when Niwa Heron's big move came, he forced his vacuum range to be compressed to 5 meters, then 4 meters, 3 meters, and 2 meters. When all the seawater turns dark blue, Chi Feng's remaining space is less than 1 meter. The heart of Kurosawa in the audience was about to be tuned out of his throat. If the legend of the knight loses, their hopes will be completely shattered. Can't lose. Chi Feng is still a little surprised. This Niwa seaman has a bit of strength, and the pressure and swallowing feeling of the seawater are undoubtedly obvious. If he is not an air-manipulated quirk, he will be swallowed directly under this big move. However, Chi Feng is no one else. He suddenly sneered, stretched his hands forward, and shouted, "Evaporation." Suddenly the sea water boiled. This boil was not controlled by Niwa Heron, but was released by Chi Feng. Amidst the invisible fluctuations, it changed tangibly. The dark blue water began to emit gas and white smoke. The amount of seawater has obviously begun to decrease, and the pressure is gradually disappearing. What's the matter? Niyu Heron's face changed when he was strategizing. How could his Wan Hai devouring him start to smoke? And the amount of water is rapidly decreasing. Is this evaporating seawater? Barkonana's eyes narrowed slightly. After Chi Feng spit out Mishima Feng with a sword, she regretted it a bit. At that time, she really missed her eyes. It turned out that this guy is so strong. Even though Chi Feng was naked at that time Chi Feng didn't take the Dark Knight Legend suit back into the spatial warehouse, but placed it next to the bath, so of course Barkonana knew who Chi Feng was. Yes, the quirk of this Dark Knight legend is very strong and can control the changes in the air. According to his strength, it is not impossible to make the air change and evaporate the seawater. A woman sitting next to Bakanana said, she was wearing a royal sister. Dress up, looks like a familiar woman, very charming. A few minutes later, the 10,000 Cs released by Niwa Siren's painstaking efforts have been swallowed by Chi Feng. If it weren't for the staff to turn on the exhaust fans, it might be a cloud-filled fairyland. It's impossible. Niwa Siren sat weakly on the ground. His current state is not much different from Mishima K's. His own skill can't hurt the slightest bit of the legend of the night. Under such a blow, his confidence has collapsed. In fact, Niwa Seaman is not weak, but Chi Feng can effectively restrain his quirk, seawater. If it weren't for Chi Feng to use Thor, the battle would have been ended in a few seconds, and the water conducts electricity, which can turn Niwa Seaman coke. Air manipulation can unlock more attack methods when Chi Feng is upgraded to LV5. Evaporation is just one of them, and even Chi Feng can change the weather in a small range. Number 168 Chapter 168 As before, Chi Feng picked up the Niwa Seaman, and after an education, he obtained 300 points higher than Mishima K's salvation points. It's right to think about it. Niwa Kiren ranks one level higher than Mishima K's, so the self-confidence is naturally higher. Such a person is defeated and it is normal to get more points. Winner, the legend of the night. Therefore, Chi Feng advanced to this group. Kurosawa jumped up with excitement. After Chi Feng stepped off the ring, Kurosawa jumped directly over, holding Chi Feng's shoulders tightly with both hands, and said incoherently, I won, unexpectedly, won. Chi Feng broke free of Kurosawa's hands, patted his shoulder and said, calm down, brother, winning is within my expectations. Kurosawa wiped the corners of his eyes and looked at Chi Feng and asked in disbelief. Why are you so strong? Have you always hidden your strength? Chi Feng gave him a white look. When did I hide it? I told you before, and you don't believe it yourself. Oh yes, it is true. Kurosawa smiled and laughed, but still asked a little puzzled. But, your ranking of the 7 saints. Chi Feng just said faintly. Just remember that the gold content of Shibuya Underground Heroes is not what you can imagine. The next game, Tomo Uemura, Blacksmith, Battle, Roadhog, River Overlord. Oki Shion's words interrupted Kurosawa, who asked again. The two sides returned to their own area. After Chi Feng returned to his area, all the people except Barbarian Mountain and Shirayuki stood up and spoke to Chi Feng said hello. The strong are worthy of respect. I didn't see it, you still have a second time. Bai Shui smiled slightly. Chi Feng said. You look good when you smile, smile more. When Bai Shui heard Chi Feng's words, she suddenly didn't want to chat with Chi Feng, as if you could see what I looked like. Seeing that Bai Shui was reluctant to speak, Chi Feng wisely walked to the last shot and sat down. Man Shan glanced at Chi Feng behind him, and asked in a gentle tone. How many methods do you still have no use? Not many, just a dozen moves. Chi Feng said blankly. For Mansion, he would not show a good face. This guy was the one who wanted to kill him, if it wasn't for his own strength. Maybe it's not him, Chi Feng, sitting here. Man Shan didn't care. The Legend of Night should be bragging. If there are more than a dozen tricks that are useless, then even his Man Shan might not be an opponent. The next game process is relatively fast, and it lasts until the time for the meal is over. Read more at hotmtlnovel.zi. Barbarian Mountain and Kyoto 5th Saint 1, as well as King Chi and Victorious. During the dinner, neither the Niwa Heron nor Mishima K's appeared. They seemed to be so scared that they didn't even dare to come and eat. However, some 7 sages and 5 kings came to Chi Feng to toast one after another, and even Kurosawa wave followed. The game lasted until midnight, when the 18 groups were completely decided, and then another group would directly enter the top 10 by. This lucky chance was directly drawn by Nishio Yuda's group. At night, Chi Feng rested in his room. Kurosawa came to visit him and talked with Chi Feng for an hour before leaving. After he sent Kurosawa away, Chi Feng began to exercise his body with thunder and lightning. After the thunder and lightning body forging was over, it began to absorb the spiritual energy. This practice time passed very quickly, and it ended directly in the early morning of the next day. After having breakfast with Kurosawa Ichiban, the match is about to begin. The ring has been completely refurbished and it seems to be stronger. Oki Shion stood in the ring and said, Yesterday's match was very exciting. We have 18 groups of players who won, and we will play today's top 10 matches. I believe that today's match must be even more exciting, so I won't say more nonsense. The old rules, let the system match against each other. After Da Muxian said this sentence, he returned to the place where he was staying, and then began to jump on the big screen. After 10 seconds, all the participating players had been matched. Chi Feng glanced at his opponent, Roadhog and River Dominator. Among them, the River Dominator is Shibuya's Underground Heroes, ranking average. Chi Feng didn't care much. Chi Feng watched the Roadhog game. This guy's quirk is a bit domineering. Rock. Roadhog's rocks are very huge, almost all of them are the kind of smash that kills you, which can smash opponents to death. After watching yesterday's game, he knew about everyone. Among the 7 sages, the strongest ones are Pen Mu Ling, Buddha, King Chi, and Manshan. In addition to these four, the rest are like Nishio Yuta, Shirayuki, Ryunosuke Hashimoto, and Ichiro Kitazura are very strong. Hashimoto Ryunosuke is the first king of Hokkaido, and he is also the kind of person who pretends to be a pig and eat a tiger. According to the strength he showed yesterday, the 7th and 3rd are not bad. The first game, Barbarian Mountain, Quicksand Monk, Fight, Kikuchi Ryo, Hattori played true. Kikuchi Ryo and Hattori are really the 5 kings. At this moment, they heard that their opponent was Manshan, and their faces instantly became ugly. This Manshan was simply a ruthless person. Yesterday's bloody battle was still vividly remembered by them, and Manshan directly beat his opponent's hands to shards, and for whatever reason, even his legs were scrapped. After treatment by medical staff, the person whose hands and feet had been abolished recovered his feet, but it is impossible for him to have hands in his life. Ryo Kikuchi directly said loudly, "We abstain." What a joke, this is not to abstain, it will really be as cold as his name by then. Monk Manshan and Lucia entered the top 10 directly, and Chi Feng is very envious. The second game, Aguchi Nuenjin, Katazo Road Ichiro, Fight, Takeuchi Zuchiro, Hoshi Keisuke. Aguchi Nuren is the woman who was sitting next to Baker Nana before. After she came to the waiting zone, Beizang Road Ichiro said directly, "Just leave these two people to me, you can rest here." Aguchi Nuon smiled softly and agreed. After Kitazoro Ichiro came to power, his opponent was Takeuchi Tsuchiro. Although the names of the two people were somewhat similar, they were far worse in strength. Knowing that he was not an opponent, Takeuchi Tsuchiro still planned to fight for a top 10 opportunity. After all, this kind of opportunity is very rare for their 5 kings. Chi Feng has long observed this Ichiro on Beizang Road, with a long ponytail, thin and tall, with a long sword hanging from his waist. Chi Feng has seen this similar shape on a tablet in his previous life. By the way, it is called Heroes League. There's a Yasuo inside, and the shape is very similar to that of Beizang Road Ichiro. After Kitazoro Ichiro slowly drew out his long sword after coming to power, he looked at Takeuchi Tsuchiro calmly. "You are very courageous, but courage alone is not enough, let's go down." "No, I want to taste your sword, how strong it is." Takeuchi Tsuchiro stepped forward, not intending to admit defeat. "Okay, then this sword, let you understand what the gap is." A sharp light flashed in Beizanglu Ichiro's eyes, and the long sword in his hand slid down like a shadow. A blue wave of sword was mixed with a strong wind. Takeuchi Tsuchiro cut it.
As soon as Takeuchi wanted to resist, he found that he had no idea of winning under the opponent's wave of swords. It seemed that when the opponent's sword was cut out, he was doomed to lose. "I admit defeat," Takeuchi Shuichiro shouted frantically. If he was hit by this wave, he would lose an arm.
The moment Beizang Road Ichiro inserted the sword back into the scabbard, the terrifying wave of blue swords also collapsed instantly, as if it had never been normal before. Okay. So strong, Takeuchi Tsuchiro was convinced that he lost, and he was ashamed of his ability to send and receive swords freely. Chapter 169 Dark Knight Legend. Cheating. After Tsuchiro Takeuchi surrendered, it was Hoshikazuki's turn, and Hoshikazuki surrendered directly in the audience. What a joke, Tsuchiro Takeuchi is ranked higher than him, and he is not even an opponent. How could he have won Katazo Road Ichiro? Chi Feng feels that Beizang Road Ichiro is very samurai style, and probably none of the people who play swords and swords at the scene is not as proficient as Beizang Road Ichiro. The next game is the Pen Mu Ling group, and then the opponent is a group of 5 kings. Obviously, Pen Mu Ling won the victory. The current game is nothing more than eliminating the 5 kings, and the rest are basically the stronger 7 sages. In one morning, the first 10 competitions ended. The list is as follows. Buddha Qian Tianjian, promoted to the top 10, Pen Mu Ling 8 Directions Blocking the Road, promoted to the top 10. Shi Wang Victor, promoted to the top 10, Bai Shui Lan Shi, promoted to the top 10. Underworld Kurosawa Ichiran, promoted to the top 10. Murder Girl Barkonana, promoted to the top 10, Mansion Quicksand Monk, promoted to the top 10. Hashimoto Ryunosuke Rei Mishima, promoted to the top 10. Nishio Yuta Lengshigu, promoted to the top 10, Jonko Nuonren Beizang Road Ichiro, promoted to the top 10. Among these 10 groups, Hashimoto Ryunosuke is a group of dark horses, who even pretends to be a pig and a tiger than Chi Feng. With the strength of the first king, he fought against the first 3 of the 7 sages, and his strength should not be underestimated. Kurosawa felt like he was dreaming, and he actually entered the top 10. This was something he didn't dare to think about before, but the credit for all this must be counted on the Legend of the Night. Without him, it would be impossible to enter the top 10. I'm still in shock until now, this time my thigh is really right. Kurosawa grinned and clamped a whole treasure crab into Chi Feng's bowl. Chi Feng turned his head to look at Kurosawa and smiled, but you didn't know that I was a thigh at first, you just thought my quirk was good, and then you made a team, didn't you? Oh. Kurosawa tapped the bowl with his chopsticks. Brother Dark Knight, how can you be so blunt? I am not apologizing. Sitting next to Chi Feng, Shi Wang was able to chat with Chi Feng. He picked up a piece of puff pastry on the table and took a bite and said, "The top 5 games are decided in the afternoon. Are you ready?" Read more at hotmtlnovel.zi. Chi Feng didn't respond to Kurosawa's wave, and replied, "It's okay, I don't ask for much, just enter the top 3. I think you have this strength." Shi Wang laughed. Chi Feng suddenly thought of something and asked Shi Wang, "By the way, who was the first place last year?" "It's me." Shi Wang said calmly. Sure enough, Chi Feng was not too surprised. As long as Shi Wang punched it, there was nothing he couldn't win. "That means you have joined the Imperial League now?" Chi Feng asked. "No, I don't like the feeling of being restrained by others. Even if I got the first position, the Imperial League invited me to work with them, but I didn't go," Shi Wang said, shaking his head. After thinking for a while, Chi Feng said, "In fact, it's not that you don't want to go, but that you are afraid of punching too many punches for the Imperial League, leading to increased side effects and losing yourself, right?" Shi Wang looked at Chi Feng in surprise. "How do you know?" Chi Feng laughed. "It's very simple. I guessed it when I knew your side effects. Your quirk is very abnormal, but because of the secondary quirk, your quirk cannot be the strongest. If you don't have a secondary quirk, I'm afraid All Might is not your opponent either." King Chi sighed after hearing this. This is indeed the case. His deputy quirk caused his achievements to be limited to this. If he uses his punches recklessly, it will lead to serious consequences. His quirk is very strong, and the deputy quirk is equally deadly. Others may be able to recover from the deputy quirk, but his deputy quirk will only increase the harm of a side effect after every extra punch. Seeing Chi Feng sigh, Chi Feng suddenly patted him on the shoulder. "I believe you can overcome this difficulty, and your strength will be improved. Then I will lend you auspicious words." Shi Wang smiled, relieved a little. In the afternoon, the game started as usual. This time the competition was 5 volts 5, and the top 5 groups were decided, which can be said to be more exciting. After Omushin's opening remarks, the name on the screen kept beating, and finally everyone's battle information appeared. The first match was Chi Feng, against Yuta Nishio and Lang Zigyu. It has to be said that Nishio Yuta's luck is really good, not only won the first round of the game, but also had a bye to enter the top 10 battle. And Nishio Yuta's quirk Chi Feng found it very tricky. Although he hadn't confronted Nishio Yuta's cut, he still felt extraordinary. Kurosawa Yilong is now purely playing soy sauce. Naturally, Chi Feng will not let him fight on stage, so he is the only one who does it. "You are very strong, but it is useless under my watermelon sword." On the ring, Nishio Yuta, holding 2 watermelon sword, looked at Chi Feng and smiled. Although Chi Feng was amazing before the game, Nishio Yuta felt himself can win Chi Feng. Chi Feng took the sword directly behind him this time and looked at Nishio Yuta and said, "Nine life is based on physical skills. He has no weapons, so he will be suppressed by you, but I am different." "Different?" Nishio Yuta chuckled. "It looks the same to me." After he finished saying this sentence, a watermelon sword slashed at Chi Feng. Chi Feng instantly felt a killing force locked on him. He couldn't escape the sword at all. If he moved to the left, he would be hit. The same result. But Chi Feng didn't even think about avoiding this sword. He also slashed out. The huge air pressure instantly swept through, and the smile on Nishio Yuta's face gradually solidified, because he did not see the legend of the night being cut off by him with this sword. Not only that, his proud watermelon sword slash actually didn't work. No, it wasn't that it didn't work, but the other party had mastered the surrounding air, causing the killing to collapse. Sure enough, Chi Feng knew about the quirk of Nishio Yuta at this time. If his quirk was something else, perhaps this sword would not be able to escape, but the quirk of Nishio Yuta was the most correct and could only be more. It's a 1-2 level battle. If you meet King Chi or Lord Buddha, those 2 watermelon sword are useless at all. How could this happen? Nishio was too flustered. He thought that he would be injured even if the Legend of the Night could block it with this sword, but he seemed to think too much. "Okay, your quirk is useless to me. Go down." Chi Feng sneered and punched out directly. The surrounding air suddenly formed wind, and a huge transparent fist rushed towards Nishio Yuta. Young Nishio was already in a panic too long, and at this moment, regardless of whether it would cause side effects, he cut out 7 sword in a row. The locked killing force of the 7 watermelon sword instantly slammed into Chi Feng's transparent punch, and then split Chi Feng's transparent punch. Chi Feng strikes. Chi Feng shook his cloak. Nishio Yuta's 7 sword were all slashed on the cloak. Only the sound of metal rubbing was heard, but the cloak did not break. Night Tails cheated, absolutely cheated. There is a problem with his cloak. I want to report it. Nishio Yuta's last psychological line of defense was defeated. This FCK cloak, even his 7 swords can block it. How can it be beaten? It's definitely cheating. At the same time he finished speaking, there were no facial features on his face. Obviously, the side effects had taken place. Nishio Yu was too eager to cry without tears, and he couldn't do anything now. Chapter 170. It's not surprising that the Legend of the Night can win, but the cloak of the Legend of the Night has yet to be verified. Such a sturdy cloak can't even split the watermelon sword of Yuta Nishio, showing a Madara. Now that Yuta Nishio's quirk side effect has occurred, she can't even speak, so Oki Shion has to look at Chi Feng and say, "Take off your cloak and show me." Da Muxian also sees it. It's true that Dark Knight Legend's strength is very strong, but the cloak on this body is also too popular. Although it is said that in addition to weapons of mass destruction, general cold weapons can be carried. He took the stage to participate in the war, but now he also has to go through a process. Chi Feng was not angry either, and immediately took off his cloak and handed it to Da Muxian for observation. After Oki Xian took over the cloak, he discovered that the cloak of underworld legend was actually soft, no different from the fabric, but the few sword of Nishio Yuta just now made the sound of metal fighting on the cloak. Can I check this cloak? Da Muxian asked. No problem. Chi Feng smiled. His cloak was made by the old man, and it still cost a lot of money. Only when air is poured into it will it be indestructible. Normally, there is no difference at all. Da Muxian tried to pull the cloak, but found that there was no tendency to harden or break after the power increased, which surprised him a bit. Is there anything special about your cloak? Da Mu Xian couldn't help asking. Chi Feng looked around at everyone present, then looked at Oki Xian and said, this cloak is only for me to use. It can have a good effect with my quirk, so it can block the attack of Nishio Yuta. Oki. Is this cheating? In this case, you can take it back. Da Muxian handed out the cloak. Chi Feng waved the cloak and flew out of Da Muxian's hand and landed on himself. The game continues. Da Muxian announced. At the same time that Chi Feng finished saying this sentence in Oki Xian, a Feng Jin knocked out the panicking Nishio Yuta out of the ring. Yang Nishio lost too much. Then came Lang Zigyu. Unfortunately, even though Lang Zigyu was very quirk, he had the courage to try, but the air conditioner was useless for Chi Feng. Chi Feng easily solved Lang Zigyu. Therefore, Underworld and Kurosawa Kazun were promoted, and Nishio Yuta was eliminated. Next game, King Chi, Victor, Fight, Bai Shui, Lan Chi. Read more at hotmtlnovel.zi. Chi Wang was the first to play and came to the arena. His resistance to women is very weak now. Although Bai Shui covered her face with a scarf, she still couldn't change Bai Shui's posture. It was extremely Meow Man. Even if you can't see the face, you can know from the eyebrows that this is a beauty. I admit defeat. Bai Shui said something that everyone thought was reasonable but unexpected. Chi Feng knows that Bai Shui might have played King Chi. Bai Shui's quirk is very powerful, but so far he does not know what the specific quirk is, but he also knows that Bai Shui's quirk can affect people's spirits. Although Chi Wang's willpower and mental state are very strong, he is already at risk under the infiltration of the side effects of quirk. If Bai Shui goes all out, even Chi Wang may lose. Wang Chi was not surprised. The same was true for Bai Shui the previous session, except that he was not facing him, but a third sage, and he directly surrendered in front of him. After Bai Shui stepped down, Lan Chi was also very witty. Although she was arrogant, she also gave in. Therefore, King Chi and Victor were promoted. Next game, Pen Mu Ling, blocking the road from all directions, fighting, murderous girl, Barconana. Bafong blocked the road and faced the murderous girl. The makeup style of the murderous girl was even better than that of Barconana. She was dressed in a bright red tights, with 2 black daggers stuck in her waist, her mouth was rich and red, and her face was powdery. The same is true.
If such a woman is in a fashionable neighborhood like Shibuya, in such a feasting place, others will definitely think it is a female pickup player playing SM.
Murder girl, go down by yourself. I am very pity for you. Bafong said with a smile, and he was not afraid of this woman who was ranked in the same position as him. Murder girl is the second sage of Shibuya, and Bafong is the second sage of Kyoto. The two people are in the same position. Seeing that your muscles are strong, but I don't know if you can't stand it. The murderous girl licked her bright red lips after she finished speaking, feeling more and more weird. You'll know if you try. Bafong blocked the road and stopped talking nonsense. When he stepped on the ground with his right foot, the thorns of thorns immediately rushed out of the ground, toward the murderous girl. The murder girl didn't pull out the 2 daggers from her waist, but waved her right hand forward. Suddenly the slender right hand turned into 5 long whips, which directly hit the thorns. Seeing his own thorns of the road was ruined by the opponent's whip, all directions blocked the road madly, rushing out a series of tactics such as metal, wooden thorns, fences, iron nets and so on from various parts of the body. Seeing the densely packed things rushing towards her, the murderous girl's face became a little cautious. She leapt on the spot and came into the air, swiping 10 whips in her hands to defeat all the things that threatened her. But the quirk blocked by all directions seems to be endless. No matter how many whips the murderous girl wields, the total energy of the attacks blocked by all directions is continuous. After a long time, the murderous girl is a little bit powerless, but it is not much better to block the way in all directions. At the moment, he has several wounds on his body, all of which were whipped by the murderous girl. Every time she draws, the murderous girl gets excited. Chi Feng has already seen that there is definitely a problem with this murderous girl's preferences. Too much deception. All directions are blocking the road. There are more than a dozen wounds on his body, and blood is flowing out of each wound. At this moment, he stretched his hands forward, thousands of metal thorns emerged, and the murderous girl was left and right they were blocked, and then he suddenly closed, and the metal thorns on the left and right closed immediately. The murderous girl was already powerless, she couldn't evade the move blocked by all directions, and was directly stabbed by the metal to close it firmly. When the metal thorns receded, the murderous girl's face was intact, and there was blood everywhere on her body, but the current murderous girl's face didn't have a trace of pain, but she was full of satisfaction. Bafong blocked the way and kicked her off the stage. This woman was really disgusting. Next, Bark One Nai played, who was also the second holy, but he had to be careful when he blocked the way. Everyone knows that Barkonana's quirk is very tricky. The reason why the murder girl can be promoted is not how strong she is, but because of Barkonana's. Chapter 171. Damn it, Bafong blocked the way and did not step down to change the style of Mu Ling to play. He felt that he could persist, but he wanted to try the strength of Barkonana. After taking the stage, Barkonanai didn't say a word, but stood still and punched out. Bafong blocked the way and saw that Barkonanai's punch was at least 20 meters away from him. He was thinking about why the other party wanted to do this, when he saw that Barkonanai's fist suddenly disappeared, and there was a pain in the back of his head. How could this happen? Bafong said in shock, lying on the ground. He saw a hole in front of Barkonanai's fist just now with his own eyes, and then the fist appeared on the back of his head. Barkonana sneered, in front of my little dimension, everything is in vain. After saying this, she stepped on the ground with her right foot, and her right foot disappeared out of thin air, appearing under Bafong blocking the road. The Bafong block, who was originally lying on the ring, was directly kicked to the sky by this sudden kick. Barkonanai seized the right time and threw dozens of punches in the air. All these dozens of punches appeared around the body of Bafong blocking the road. Some key parts have been removed. Puff. He vomited blood immediately after blocking the road in all directions in the air. He finally knew how it felt to be suppressed. The quirks restrained each other. His blocking quirk was not the opponent of the other small dimension quirk at all. It is normal to be pressed and beaten. But he didn't expect Barkonana to be so strong, which was indeed unexpected. Because of the injury in the previous game, Bafong was unable to persist in blocking the road and was beaten out of the ring by Barkonana. At this time, Chi Feng knew the power of this Barkonana quirk. From what Barkonana said just now, he could hear that Xiaodiyuan should be his quirk. This kind of quirk that can be used in the dimension is indeed very strong, and it is the same as Kurogiri's teleportation, but Chi Feng doesn't know whether it is Kurogiri or Barkonana. Pen Mu Ling was not controlled by the quirk of Barkonana. The first 3 sages of them had a relationship in private, and they knew each other a little bit, but they didn't know a lot in one area. After taking the stage, Bai Mu Ling directly drew a black and white Bakananai, and then drew a Yoshihara Shinghai, and he drew a protective shield and wrapped it in it. The most troublesome thing about Bark Nana is dealing with Bai Mu Ling. To put it bluntly, only Bai Mu Ling and King Chi are the most troublesome. Even the Buddha in the same area as her is not so troublesome. Read more at hotmtlnovel.zi. Bark Nai Nai started immediately, but after her punch, Black Bark Nai hit the same punch. Black and white Yoshihara Shinghai immediately came to the location where Bark Nai Nai punched, and Bark Nai Nai's punch was hit on the body of the black and white Yoshihara Shinghai. Suddenly, a rebounding force hit. Bark Nana spit out a mouthful of blood. She couldn't help but want to curse, and even drew her, although the person quirk drawn by Bai Mu Ling is not as strong as the original owner quirk. Even a lot worse, but the key is to win in a quantity. Yoshihara Shinghai's quirk is very abnormal. With her own quirk, isn't it invincible? At least she can't figure out a way to crack it. Pen Mu Ling's personal strength has not yet reached the level of the 3 emperors, but it will be a matter of time to continue in this way, so whether it is the Imperial League or other external forces, they all value and fear Pen Mu Ling very much. Although King Chi is powerful and known as One Punch, King Chi is half a waste in the eyes of the major forces. After all, the side effects are too fatal. If you use too much quirk, you will get lost sooner or later. There is no strength or threat anymore. Pen Mu Ling, your strength can only be in the top 3 at most. Why should you offend people so much? Barkanina has some itchy teeth.
She wants to be in the top 3. Her quirk needs W-type reagent to get to the next level. But the strength of these 7 sages is too strong. There are a few people who are always insurmountable by her, such as this wood spirit.
Ben Mu Ling, all directions block the way to advance. The quicksand monk plays first. This quicksand monk looks like a monk. Unlike the Buddha, the quicksand monk has sandalwood beads on his neck. He has a bald head, but he has tattoos on his head, almost covering the entire top of his head. It's enough to enter the top 3. What you need is exactly what I need. Who can you do for yourself? Bai Mu Ling smiled in the protective cover. Bimu Ling didn't want to continue to consume with Barkonana, and drew the black and white All Might. When the black and white All Might appeared, Barkonana knew that he had lost. How could this? After being hit by this golden dragon, the quicksand monk felt his stomach tumbling. He couldn't understand why the hard quicksand wall would be directly broken through without even the slightest obstacle. This guy is really so strong. Hashimoto Ryunosuke was a young man with yellow hair, but he was very handsome, with a touch of sadness on his face, but he was still murderous. In short, he was a handsome young man. The quicksand monk immediately defended, standing up a high wall of quicksand, trying to resist the opponent's attack, but the next moment the golden dragon broke through his quicksand wall and directly hit him. Damn it! Barkonana punched frantically. She didn't believe that just a few fakes could predict her attack trajectory. Bai Mu Ling put away the ink pen, and the 3 black and white people standing on the ring instantly turned into black ink, as if they had never appeared before. The result was exactly the same as Bark Nana thought. Her rapid punching could indeed interfere with the opponent's prediction, causing the Pen Mu Ling's protective shield to be hit several times, which was a little shaky. The corner of Hashimoto's mouth raised, but he did not answer the words of Monk Quicksand, which made Monk Quicksand particularly angry, so he launched an attack. Hashimoto Ryunosuke didn't care about the quicksand released by the quicksand monk. He just raised his hand and waved. A golden dragon rushed out of his right hand and rushed directly to the quicksand monk. Huh! Bark Nene snorted unwillingly, and took the initiative to jump off the ring. She knew that it was impossible to enter the top 3. The top 3 of each session seemed to be destined. Some people finally got it. Less than. But Bark Nana was also uncomfortable. Although she hit the Penwood Spirit's shield, she also hit the black and white Yoshihara Shinghai's tricks, causing her every punch to hit her own body. Although the damage was only 1/3, but it was enough to make her uncomfortable. The quicksand monk's quirk is quicksand. At this moment, the quicksand spurted out from his body, filling the entire arena. If he is stronger, he can turn into quicksand to attack, but it is not easy to get there. Of the 5 kings, you are the most surprising dark horse ever. Monk Luzon said blankly. No one knew what he thought in his heart. The next game, Barbarian Mountain, Quicksand Monk, Battle, Hashimoto Ryunosuke, Mishima Rei. Chapter 172. Go on. Hashimoto Ryunosuke didn't give the monk Quicksand any room for refusal at all. Another golden dragon shot out. The monk's stomach was already tumbling. This sudden golden dragon once again made him difficult to prevent and was directly knocked off the ring. Monk Quicksand couldn't understand why he was ousted so quickly. Why is this first king so strong? He is the 5th sage, 2 rankings higher than the first king, but he was relieved after thinking about it. Hashimoto Ryunosuke's strength is at least the level of the top 3 sages. Man Shan stood up slowly from his seat. No one thought to him, and no one thought he could beat Hashimoto Ryunosuke. Hashimoto Ryunosuke is the dark horse in this competition, second only to Underworld. The 7th saint of Underworld is only 1 rank worse than Hashimoto Ryunosuke, but the strength is that even the 2nd saint is not an opponent. As for Barbarian Mountain, no one would think he can leapfrog. Only Chi Feng knows how powerful the mountain is. This guy is very tolerant and low-key. After occupying the position of the 6th sage in Shibuya, he has not challenged the previous sages. But today, Chi Feng knows that he is going to show off. Seeing Mansion stepping onto the ring, Hashimoto Ryunosuke's expression was very flat. This Mansion was ranked lower than the quicksand monk, and he didn't need any effort to solve it. Hashimoto Ryunosuke's idea is also the idea of most people present. No one thinks that Barbarian Mountain can win. Although the strength of the previous Barbarian Mountain was very strong, most of them were playing against the lower-ranked players, and the cruel methods caused some people to have a strong illusion. This kind of illusion is completely useless to Hashimoto Ryunosuke, cruel, and is not a necessary condition for a person to be strong. Really strong is not like this. Go down by yourself, I don't want to waste time. Hashimoto Ryunosuke said flatly, and he didn't feel anything about Barbarian Mountain's cruel methods, because this kind of thing would not happen to him. Man Shan sneered. In the previous game, he seemed to be of average strength. Cruel methods have always been his usual tactics, which led these guys to think that he was a stubborn person, but unfortunately, he was not. It's time for the top 5 in the final election to show some strength, lest some people think I'm good for bullying. Mansion's sturdy body took a step forward, gathering an invisible force in his right hand, and then slammed it out. The sound of the breaking wind sounded, like a beast attacking. Hashimoto Ryunosuke's originally unwavering face finally changed color, and the same punch was punched out, and the golden dragon appeared. Boom. Read more at hotmtlnovel.zi. With a loud noise, the golden dragon that Hashimoto Ryunosuke was proud of was directly dispelled. Although he also offset the attack of the wild mountain, he was also very shocked. Is this guy also pretending to be a pig and eating a tiger, really powerful? Until this moment, some 7 sages and 5 kings began to carefully look at the wild mountain. This kind of strength can be evenly matched with Hashimoto Ryunosuke's golden dragon attack, and it is obviously a dark horse. The faces of Mishima K's and Niwa Kairan, who were sitting inconspicuously, turned blue. At that time, Mansion stood behind them and let them roll. He thought that Mansion was a rubbish, but his strength was so strong. Fist, obviously did not use full force. If they use their full strength, can the two of them stop it? This is the question that Mishima K's and Niwa Kairan thought in their minds. The legend of the night had already scared them too, and they never dared to think of anything else, but despite this, the viciousness in their hearts could not be eliminated, especially Mishima K's. He has a broken arm and it is difficult to recover. Even if it is recovered, it is not his own arm. So Mishima Wind hates and fears Chi Feng. Hey, I really have some strength. Mansion said suspiciously, but he was not surprised. After all, Hashimoto Ryunosuke had just started working with monk quicksand in his eyes. Hashimoto Ryunosuke couldn't calm down anymore. What Man Shan said seemed very relaxed, so Man Shan definitely retained his strength. In this case, he might lose if he didn't work hard. Puff. Hashimoto Ryunosuke's momentum instantly wilted, his eyes full of lifelessness. Do you dare to claim to be a god fist? Man Shan's eyes widened, his aura changed in vain. He didn't have so many lock-up processes by Hashimoto Ryunosuke, His power was concentrated on his right hand, and layers of ripples swelled, constantly compressing on his right arm. Revolve, accumulate. However, people like Barbarian Mountain are strong, and it is better to be a killer for the Imperial League. Many things abroad need to be dealt with. I can't do anything. This Barbarian Mountain is suitable. Da Muxian has decided in his heart whether or not Barbarian Mountain has entered the top 3. He will summon it into the Imperial League. Chi Feng can see that Barbarian Mountain's strength is stronger than when he fought him before. Maybe he didn't use his full strength at that time, but Chi Feng knew that Barbarian Mountain still didn't use his full strength. The mountain yelled, and there was a destructive aura from his right hand. Within 5 meters of a straight line, a strong shock appeared. This shock wave was not invisible and transparent, but produced a kind of distorted substance. I saw some slight changes in the surrounding space. Impossible. Hashimoto Ryunosuke sternly shouted, but he had to accept the fact that his Shunlong Shenquan was suppressed. This lifelessness is not due to imminent death, but a recognition of his own strength. His confidence has been defeated, and the beliefs of the strong have been directly destroyed over the years. He really can't believe it, an unknown person. People would beat him like this. Hashimoto Ryunosuke's fingers were bent into 3 fingers, and he suddenly pushed towards the mountain, and a huge golden dragon head appeared. When this dragon head appeared, everyone present could feel a majestic aura, as if the ruler of all things came to the world. It's daunting. Shunlong Shenquan. The huge golden dragon head suddenly rushed, and suddenly it seemed as if it had been hit by something. The dragon head was squeezed abruptly. Hashimoto Ryunosuke's expression suddenly changed. He knew that he had underestimated Mansion, but he did not expect the Mansion meeting so strong. Broken. He admired Hashimoto Ryunosuke's dark horse, but he was still surprised by the appearance of Barbarian Mountain. But Barbarian's temperament was too bloodthirsty and difficult to control. He liked Hashimoto Ryunosuke more than Barbarian Mountain. Hashimoto Ryunosuke's hands changed intricately, and the momentum of his body began to rise. Everyone could feel that Hashimoto Ryunosuke was going to make a full shot. Barbarian Mountain wins. Oki Shion said directly. He knew that Hashimoto Ryunosuke could no longer fight, and Barbara just wanted to continue his cruel hand. Under this kind of momentum, Mansion was not afraid. The corners of his mouth raised, and the sound of blasting suddenly appeared in his right hand. At this moment, Mansion had already punched out. The devastating shockwave smashed the golden dragon head and directly hit Hashimoto Ryunosuke's right waist. In just an instant, Hashimoto Ryunosuke's right waist changed into blood foam, and even his spine could be seen. Quirk is very peculiar, but he didn't know it. Mansion walked towards Hashimoto Ryunosuke, wanting to make another shot.
Chapter 173. After Hashimoto Ryunosuke was carried down by medical staff for treatment, Mishima Rei did not even have the courage to come to power. Hashimoto Ryunosuke and her were old acquaintances, so he was willing to help her get to a high position together.
But this punch of Mansion directly broke her illusion about high position in her heart. Mishima Ling didn't dare to have any more thoughts. She was only suitable for being the 5 kings. The world of the 7 sages was too cruel. I surrender. Mishima Rei directly announced the surrender. Cut. Mansion glanced at Oki Shion disdainfully. Oki Shion announced that he won so quickly. Obviously he didn't want himself to start with Hashimoto Ryunosuke again, and he was unhappy at all. As for the female classmates like Rei Mishima, Mansion disdains even more. Mansion, Quicksand Monk, advanced to the next round. The next game, Lord Buddha, Qian Tianjian, fight, Aguchi Nuon Ren, Beizang Road Ichiro. At this point, Qian Tianjian knew that his quirk was useless, so he let Fo Yi go. Similarly, Beizanglu Ichiro knew that Aguchi Nuon Ren was not Fo Yi's opponent, so he went directly on stage. Kitazong Road Ichiro knew that he was not an opponent of Lord Buddha, but as a samurai, how could he lose without fighting? Beizang, do you want to do it with me? Foy still seemed to be charitable, but no one would think that Buddha was charitable. As long as the quirk is activated, Buddha is a god of murder, there is no charity. This is the so-called smiling tiger. Death is like the wind, always with me. Why don't you retreat without fighting? Beizanglu Ichiro pulled out the sword from his waist, and the blade turned from white to blue, which was extremely gorgeous. FK me. Chi Feng immediately stood up. This Beizanglu Ichiro will not be Yasuo's master, or is he a junior? Brother Beizang, you and I are both one of the 7 sages of Shibuya. I stand for you. Chi Feng gave a thumbs up to Ichiro Beizang. The reason for supporting him is because of the phrase death is like the wind, always with you, my body. Hey ye, you are polite. Beizanglu Ichiro smiled towards Chi Feng's position, but at the moment, Buddha's face was not so good. The Dark Knight legend actually showed his favor to Beizanglu Ichiro in front of him, that is to say, I was willing to help Beizang Road Ichiro and offended him. Seeing Foy looking to him, Chi Feng still has no fluctuations in his heart. Although Foy is terrifying, is he scared of Chi Feng? If it doesn't exist, it's just a mere Buddha. Chi Feng will be the strongest man in the future. How can he be afraid of a first sage? Seeing that the legend of the Dark Knight is not damaging to himself, Lord Buddha suddenly smiled and turned to look at Beizang Road Ichiro. This is what you asked for. As soon as the words of Foy were finished, The aura of the whole body immediately changed, and the whole body was like ink, and under the dark body, the terrifying power of Buddha once again appeared. Read more at hotmtlnovel.zi. Bizang Road Ichiro naturally knew that Lord Buddha was very strong, so he directly put out his full strength at the beginning, and the sword in his hand slashed out suddenly, and a blue wave of swords seemed to be able to cut everything, rushing towards Lord Buddha. This is not over yet. Bizang Road Ichiro wiped his left hand on the sword body, and the sword body turned from blue to red, and then it turned into magma, exuding fiery heat. Kai Yan slashed. Hesai. Bizang Road Ichiro cut out again with a single sword, and the red wave of sword instantly cut a deep scar on the ground of the ring. The deep scar was red, as if it had just come out of a high-temperature furnace. Lord Buddha's eyes were red, and the first blue wave of swordsmen made by Kitazang Road Ichiro struck him. He stood still and did not move. This wave of swords smashed on his dark body, causing some metal collisions. Sound, but it didn't hurt him. However, after this sword, the next red wave of swords struck. This fiery and powerful wave of swords struck, and Foy could no longer use his body to resist, but at this speed, he had no time to escape, and he slapped his hands forward. This crimson sword wave clamped. Chi-chi, came the voice. Foy's dark hands exuded white smoke, and his legs kept backing away. Open! Bizang Road Ichiro shouted, and at the same time inserted the sword back into the scabbard. The moment the sword entered the scabbard, the crimson wave of the sword held by Foy's hands became larger, and he broke free from the restraints of his hands, on Buddha's chest. Puff! Everyone heard it. This was the sound of hitting the body and hurting the body. The red wave dissipated. The Buddha still stood firmly on the spot, but there was a wound on his dark and rocky chest, a black wound. Some crimson blood flowed out of it, and he was injured. Father, it is really strong, and Bei Zhang is ashamed. Bei Zhanglu Ichiro sighed. One of his most powerful tricks just hurt the Buddha. It can be seen that he uses other tricks to achieve the same effect, so he lost. Ichiro Bizang, who was about to leave, suddenly heard Lord Buddha say, "Do I want to leave unscathed if I hurt? Your Excellency, why be aggressive?" Before I finished speaking, Bei Zhanglu Ichiro felt a cold wind passing behind him, and he quickly drew his sword in front of him. Boom! The blade trembled, and Bei Zhanglu Ichiro only felt his hands numb and lost consciousness. Foy's punch seemed to be really irritated. "I surrender," forced helplessly. Bei Zhanglu Ichiro directly announced his surrender. If he really wants to fight, he can't be Foy's opponent. But Buddha's speed was too fast. As soon as Ichiro's voice in Bizang Road fell off, he had been punched 4 or 5 times in his stomach, and immediately he spurted out a mouthful of blood. "Stop it!" Da Muxian shouted immediately. Bizang Road Ichiro had already surrendered, and Buddha suddenly became angry and began to take revenge. But Omushin's words didn't work. At this time, Buddha had already hit more than 20 punches. No matter how Bizanglu Ichiro could withstand such a blow, there was blood all over his body at this moment. No! Iguchi Nurin suddenly burst into tears and wanted to rush to the stage to save Bizang Road Ichiro, but he was stopped by others. Just when Bizang Road Ichiro couldn't hold on, a hand was placed on Foy's shoulder suddenly. Foy's body instantly became cold, and his eyes became clear, and then he felt like he was thrown away like a basketball, went out and fell out of the ring. This is the first warning. The second time, I will kill you directly. Heikobi stood on the ring and stared coldly at the Buddha outside the stage, surrounded by black energy. Good, I know I was wrong. The Buddha trembled, and immediately stood up and admitted his mistake. Heikobi turned his head to look at the medical staff, pointed to Kitazo Road Ichiro, take him down for treatment. Yes. The medical staff lifted Kitazoro Ichiro, who was almost in a coma, and Heikobi returned to his position. His existence is to supervise fairness. In the case of Buddha, Oki Shion can stop it, so he must. There are 3 emperors present, otherwise some consequences cannot be borne. This kind of thing happened in every Imperial League ranking tournament. 17 saints died last year, so this kind of thing will never happen again in the Imperial League. Chi Feng has a kind of anger in his heart. This Buddha is too much, and it may be that Buddha was angry by supporting Bizanglu Ichiro before. It seems that I killed Bizang Road Ichiro. Chi Feng stared at Bizang Road Ichiro, who was being carried down, and clenched his fists. If he meets Buddha, he will definitely seek justice for Bei Zhang. Chapter 174. Even if Iguchi Nuon feels uncomfortable, he is very clear that she is not Foy's opponent. Even if she ranks higher than Kitazong Road Ichiro, she doesn't think she can hurt Buddha. Buddha is the first sage in Tokyo, and she is the 3rd sacred in Tokyo. How can one not know the horror of Buddha? Therefore, Jonko Nuonren surrendered. As a result, the top 5 rankings have come out. Dark Knight Tail Kurosawa Ichiran, promoted to the top 5. Chi Wong Victor, promoted to the top 5. Pen Mu Ling 8 Directions Blocking the Road, promoted to the top 5. Mansion Quicksand Monk, top 5. Buddha Qian Tianjian, promoted to the top 5. Congratulations to everyone for entering the top 5, because there are 5 people, so you have to take a bye. The system will automatically select the bye. It's very fair. After Omu Xian finished speaking, he pointed his finger at the big screen, and the name on the big screen began to quickly appear. Beat. The name on the screen slowly stopped, and finally fell into the group of Legend of the Night. Oki smiled and said, "Then congratulations to the group of the Legend of the Night," and directly advanced to the top 3. "I'm not dreaming." Kurosawa stood up excitedly. The top 3 he dreamed of was so easy to enter. Even if the final result is third, it's okay. It's just a dream to get into the top 3. Congratulations to brother Kurosawa. Uchiha Minato and the 7 sages immediately clasped their fists at Kurosawa Yilin. Regardless of the final ranking of Kurosawa Yilong, even if it is the 3rd place, it will be highly regarded by Emperor League. The most important point is that the top 3 have W-type reagents. As long as Kurosawa Yilong gets W-type reagents, the strength will definitely rise to a notch. No one does not congratulate him for the upcoming wave of Kurosawa. Uchiha Minato was a little regretful at this time. He had known that he had offended the Legend of the Undernight when he hadn't been at the sea to discuss and exchange meetings. Now it's fine, and the Kurosawa following the Legend of the Night will soon rise up. Chi Feng didn't have much trouble in his heart. Even if he didn't have a bye, he was sure to make it to the top 3, but it was more difficult. However, if he meets Chi Wang, Chi Feng feels that he is not an opponent yet. As for the rest of the people, it is difficult to deal with, but after all, there is a chance of winning. Read more at hotmtlnovel.zi. Man Shan turned his head to look at Chi Feng. "It's very lucky, it seems it's impossible to play against you." Chi Feng didn't answer Man Shan's words, but Bai Shui said at this moment, "Too outstanding is a good thing." Chi Feng didn't know the meaning of Bai Shui's words, but since Bai Shui said it, she naturally had her own thoughts, but Chi Feng didn't care too much. At this time, the 4 groups of playlists have come out. The first game is Chi Wang Victor, the game, Pen Mu Ling Bafong Block the Way, and the second game is Wild Mountain Quicksand Monk, the game, Buddha, Qian Tian. At this point, the 2 sides directly play the strongest representative, and as long as the strongest representative loses, then even if the second person plays again, it will be useless. Unless Quirk is suppressed, but obviously, Quirk suppression is not enough to make up the gap in strength at this time. After Chi Wang came on stage, he touched his bald head, looked at Bai Mu Ling who was standing not far away, and said, "Be considerate of me, so that my side effects won't get worse." Bai Mu Ling took the ink pen on his back. Although he felt helpless, he still had to say, "I know I am not your opponent, but I still have to try it. After all, it's all this time. No one wants to enter the top 3. Chi Wang sighed, "Then there is no way." Bai Mu Ling knows the horror of King Chi, so he is not half dull at all. He directly drew a black and white All Might with ink pen, then drew a black and white Yoshihara Shinghai, and finally drew a black and white Chi Wang. Wang Chi didn't have any expressions, and he rushed towards Bai Mu Ling with his feet. The people drawn by Bai Mu Ling may be useful to other people, but they are useless to him. Black and white Yoshihara Shinghai immediately blocked King Chi, and King Chi directly punched out, and said at the same time, "Everything is insignificant in front of power." Bai Mu Ling stared at King Chi for a long time before sighing, "Oh, I'm destined to miss the first 3. Go down by yourself, I don't want to hurt you," Chi Wang said in a difficult tone. Originally, he used 1 punch for a match, but the opponent he met was Bai Muling, so after 3 punches, he was a little vacant. Although Manshan's previous performance was very strong, Foy didn't take it seriously. After all, Hashimoto Ryunosuke is only the 5 kings. No matter how strong he is, he cannot be the opponent of the top 3 sages, and Manshan just crossed the threshold of the top 3 sages, but it's only the strength of the 3rd holy. Chi Feng admires Victor Ostrich very much. This guy is a human-shaped ostrich with an ostrich head. He is the 3rd sage of Miyazaki. He doesn't know the specific strength. In short, he has almost no effort in the group of King Chi, and he entered the top 3 directly. Read more at hotmtlnovel.zi. Chinese MTL fan fiction, second element novel can be read at hotmtl novel for free. There will still be a chance next year. Wang Chi managed to squeeze out a smile, and Bai Mu Ling left the ring as everyone thought. At such a close distance, it would be too easy for Wang Chi to hit Pen Mu Ling. Since King Chi is so kind, Bai Mu Ling didn't want to be beaten to taste King Chi's power, so he stepped down. Boom! Chi Wang's punch hit the black and white Jiyuan Xinghai's chest firmly, and the result that Pen Muling wanted to see was not seen. Chi Wang did not rebound from being hurt by hitting the black and white Jiyuan Xinghai. Instead, the black and white Yoshihara Shinghai directly turned into a pool of black ink scattered on the ground. King Chi, Victor, advanced to the top 3. As for Bafong blocked the way and gave up, he is the 2nd sage in Kyoto, and King Chi is the 1st sage in Kyoto. No one knows the power of King Chi better than him, so after Bai Mu Ling lost, he never thought about going to King Chi. Hit. The next battle will be more exciting, Barbarian Mountain versus Buddha. This battle is what Chi Feng wants to see most. He is hostile to Manshan, and he is similar to Foy, so the harder the 2 men fight, the better. They are not fuel-efficient lamps, it is better to die. Fortunately, his willpower is firm, otherwise he would really fall. Bai Mu Ling was shocked. King Chi's strength was as rumored. He didn't expect that even the Yoshihara Shinghai he drew could not resist his punch. It seemed that the opponent hadn't been backlashed yet. Even if the Imperial League does not value Kurosawa Yilong, There is also the Dark Horse of Dark Knight legend. According to everyone's opinion, Kurosawa Yuave and Dark Knight legend should have a good relationship. Kurosawa Ichiro is also the envy of everyone. Because he followed the legend of the night, he also entered the top 3. People who were not optimistic about Kurosawa Ichi also started to fawn on him. After all, even if Kurosawa Ichi is average now, if you enter the Imperial League, it will be sooner or later to be strong. Although Chi Wang stood in front of Bai Mu Ling, his forehead was full of sweat. He was suppressing the side effects in his body at this moment. If he broke out at this time, he would be finished. Bai Mu Ling also saw that King Chi's side effects were about to occur, but at this moment he had no chance to draw characters again, because King Chi was standing 1 meter in front of him. King Chi punched the Black and White All Might again and came to Bai Mu Ling. King Black and White Chi appeared to protect the Lord, but he was also beaten into ink by King Chi with the same punch. Chapter 175 Barbarian Mountain's big move. After Man Shan stepped onto the stage, there was a fierceness in his eyes, and in the end he met a strong opponent like the first sage, which was completely different from the people he had fought before. Fo Yi's strength so far, he knows very well that once the quirk of this guy is activated, the 6 relatives will not recognize him, and the strength is also outrageous. However, his body is very strong and he is not afraid of Buddha, so this battle is very important. If he wins, he will naturally enter the top 3. Then after he gets the W-type reagent, his strength will improve by leaps and bounds. If he does not enter the top 3, then his strength will become greater and greater with the Legend of the Night. So this battle must be won. Goodness, you are not my opponent, go down by yourself. Buddha still has a compassionate and kind face, but no one cares about this. Everyone knows that he is a ruthless person, but he is a fight against Mansion. Don't talk such bullshit in front of me. Lousy doesn't like to listen. What kind of garlic do you pretend? Mansion said in a bad tone. He is the most uncomfortable person like Foy. Although he has enemies with the Legend of the Night, if he and compared with Lord Buddha, he prefers people like the Legend of the Night who speak no nonsense. Fei's face suddenly became cold. A 6th saint dared to talk to me like this? 6th sage. Man Shan sneered. You have been in a high position, so your mind is not easy to use. Ranking is not important, what is important is strength. Okay, very good, Lord Buddha suddenly smiled. I will let you know what is strength. Don't talk nonsense, look at the move. Mansion would not give Foy a chance to react, and he took a step forward. His right hand was like a spring, the force of the shockwave was immediately compressed, and then he punched Foy out. The sonic boom sounded, and a shockwave hit him. Foy didn't expect that Mansion would attack him so quickly. He was furious, his eyes began to turn red, and his body turned black at this moment, and he fisted against the shockwave of Mansion. Fo Yi abruptly offset the shockwave and took a dozen steps back, but the next moment he quickly came to the front of Mansion. His fist hit the Mansion like a storm. I'm not someone else. Mansion sneered, and the same fists were thrown out like gusts of wind and rain, and each of them hit each other with each punch, sometimes with 4 punches facing each other. The astonishment in Mansion's eyes grew stronger and stronger. The strength of this Buddha's body was simply outrageous. He hit the opponent with dozens of punches, but he didn't react at all. However, Buddha's attack was effective against him. Man Shan already had some minor injuries on his body at this time, and they were all caused by the Buddha. If this continues, the consequences will be disastrous. Read more at hotmtlnovel.zi. After the shock wave of a punch knocked Foy back, Mansion quickly moved to one side, so that he was not Foy's opponent if he fisted against him. He had to take out the bottom of the box if he wanted to win. Although Foy inspired Quirk, his mind is still sober. Barbarian Mountain cannot fall under his attack. This is already very strong. But no matter how strong his body is, he will become weaker and weaker under continuous blows. The injury is getting more and more serious. Mansion crossed his legs and stretched his hands forward. An invisible force began to be transmitted, starting with his feet and changing back and forth between his hands. A faint sonic boom sounded. The Buddha didn't interrupt the Mansion's tricks. He wanted to see how strong this Mansion was. Since he was so eloquent, let him know that even if you zoomed in, it would be useless. Seeing that Lord Buddha didn't attack him, Mansion naturally knew what Lord Buddha was thinking at the moment. He sneered in his heart. Every arrogant person is like this. You have to enter the coffin to know what terror is. The power begins to converge and stack up. The quirk of Barbarian Mountain is the impact force. As long as he is given time, this impact force can be maximized infinitely. That is to say, if this impact force is not interfered by the outside world, Mansion wants to it can be as powerful as it is. But because the impact force requires a strong body to withstand, so even if he gathers more strength now, it is limited. Only when his body becomes indestructible, the strength that is gathered cannot even be said to be a punch, not seriously injured. But who would give him such a long time to condense the strength? At this time only Foy, such an arrogant person, would do so, so Mansion sneered in his heart. 5 minutes later, the smile on the corner of Mansion's mouth has become more and more intense, and now he has to punch the Buddha even if he is powerful, and if he gives him some more time, the Buddha will be severely injured by him. But Mansion responded to him with double fists. At this moment, the impact that Mansion had brewed was released, and the ground of the ring was instantly sunken and cracked directly. Everyone present could feel a terrifying power. It seemed that under this power, everything will be destroyed. When Man Shan released this trick, he was already powerless, and suddenly sat on the ground, and Foy was still bearing this extremely powerful force. But the look on Man Shan's face, Lord Buddha, knew that he didn't mean to delay time, but was really brewing something. Foy felt that something was wrong. Why did Baranshan's attack be delayed? 5 minutes have passed since Baranshan's attack. Could it be that Man Shan is delaying time? Read more at hotmtlnovel.zi. Chinese MTL fan fiction, second element novel can be read at hotmtl novel for free. It's a terrible quirk. Chi Feng took a deep look at the brutal mountain who was sitting on the ring and collapsed. If he faced this punch, he would be equally helpless, unless he used all his strength to resist, but even if he took out all of it. The strength of this haste is also unable to stop such an attack. Qian Tianjian stood under the ring with a pale face. The mansion's trick just now really frightened him. Now he only has fear in his heart, and he doesn't dare to fight at all. Crack, silly. Foy was quickly carried down by the medical staff, and Mansion knew that if he followed the normal fight, he was not Foy's opponent. However, if Foy's brain was not good enough, he was given a chance to brew a big move. This was also on the premise that the Buddha didn't know his quirk. Dare to do this, if you know that he might be the one who loses now. Foy's face changed wildly, but it was too late to escape. He put his hands on his chest and crossed them, and the black hardness of his skin rose again. At this time, the shockwave of the wild mountain had arrived. Fool, what are you waiting for? Man Shan suddenly laughed. Hey Kobe cursed, then stared at Mansion for a few seconds, and finally looked away. Buddha's heart sank. He clearly heard the sound of his double-watch skin shattering, and then his handbones broke, and then the shockwave hit his chest with a crackling sound. His indestructible body was actually there, directly shattered under the opponent's attack. Chi Feng is not a fool. When Mansion began to brew tricks, he knew that this was the ultimate move of Mansion. Although Chi Feng is on the 4th level of Chi training, he can feel the gathering and sublimation of power, so he knows Mansion. This trick is that the longer the time accumulated, the stronger the strength. In the end, Lord Buddha couldn't hold on to it, and he was blasted off the ring. He spat a bit of blood in the air, turning his eyes white. Foy felt that something was wrong, and immediately rushed towards the mountain. Puff.